Well, the order of the Lowell City Council regular meeting Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Now we can back up to the roll call.
Mayor Bennett.
Here.
Councilor Harris.
Here.
Councilor Stratus.
Present.
Councilor Weathers.
Here.
Councilor Murray. Here.
Okay. Any changes desired for the agenda? Okay, not hearing, not seeing. No consent agenda. Any public comments? Not seeing, not hearing any. Council comments. Okay. No staff reports. First thing on our agenda tonight is a public hearing for ordinance 309. We'll recess this at 7:02 for a public hearing, and Oregon statutes require the council to hold public hearings on matters where the public can comment. Oregon land use laws require cities to hold public hearings on certain types of land use decisions. Public hearings are dedicated to items of open consideration and heard within a regular meeting for which public input is desired. The public will be allowed to make presentations to the council and give a reasonable opportunity to be heard concerning ordinance 309, an ordinance adopting text amendments to Lowell's downtown code and text amendments to Lowell's comprehensive plan codifying the Lowell downtown master plan. The members of the council may, if they wish, ask questions of the presenters following their presentation. The main function of the council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed topics. Mr. Cottle, will you introduce ordinance 309?
Mr. Mayor, I'll turn this over to Jake Callister with Lane Council of Governments. He has a presentation prepared for tonight, which I will pull up.
Jeremy. Thank you, council, for the opportunity to be with you. Spent some time in this room the last several months between the fall and now, and enjoy my trips out to Lowell. Appreciate the opportunity to present. There are two public hearings as we have it laid out. A public hearing to adopt text amendments to the development code and to the comprehensive plan. There's also a hearing for a adjacent companion ordinance, which is approving the rezoning of properties and adopting some new essentially plan designations into the comprehensive plan through the regulating plan. So the way that we're going to present this though is a presentation. All of the components are essentially cohesive, and then we can proceed with the hearing. Just so that's clear. Oh, thanks. So we have been meeting with a number of different groups. This is just a high level. I'm going to keep my presentation fairly short. You've got a copy of it here. It's essentially a recap. I think this is an important slide. It shows the process. Really, the process that is reflected in the actions tonight, though, goes back an additional 2 years and includes the process that was undertaken to create and adopt the downtown master plan. So the downtown master plan takes us back a couple of years prior to what you see here. And so we've had quite a few iterations of deliverables, iterations of meetings between a code committee, community outreach on a couple of occasions, and then several work sessions with decision makers over that time period as well. I've included this in every presentation because I want to reflect the efforts of the community members who contributed to our code committee. This represents a little bit of an overlap. There was an original code committee, and then there was the reformation of the code committee, and there was some continuity between the two, but there was also some differences between the first round and the second round, kind of phase one, phase two. So you can see the individuals who participated in that process. That was check-ins to vet early on concepts, and then revisit with detail and to make our way through some of the substance. This is really just about an overview of what these ordinances are about. It's the action itself. The comprehensive plan is being updated to integrate the downtown master plan. So the downtown master plan was adopted in 2019. So it is a standalone refinement plan to the comp plan. But a common procedure that has to follow is the formal integration of that document into the comprehensive plan to acknowledge it like the other refinement plans, to make the necessary, at least high level adjustments to just account for its existence. And then really the bread and butter of the project was the implementation of downtown master plan. So development code is where implementation happens. Your plan documents set your policy, they establish goals, they set sort of direction and basic themes, and then the development code establishes the details that the developer engages with or property owner. And that's a necessary step for it to be fully viable. Wanted to just touch on really quickly the high level why of the downtown master plan. And what essentially, so what emerged from that is I'm going to outline some goals and then some patterns that emerged, and that's really what you see in the downtown elements of the comprehensive or the development code. So goal one was a quaint downtown. Downtown Lowell will be defined by gateways, have its city hall at the center, and streets will be walkable with slow traffic. So this emerged from input from a full day work session where folks came in and engaged with in a very interactive exercise, took tours of the community. Goal two, a central park. There'll be a central park at the heart of downtown. We provide tree-lined, comfortable place for pedestrians. Goal three, multi-story mixed-use buildings. Buildings in the downtown area will be a mix of commercial and residential uses with a diversity of businesses. Goal four, a variety of homes. Homes in downtown will be a mix of sizes and will be available at a wide range of income levels. Goal five, connected wide sidewalks. Downtown will incorporate an interconnected system of sidewalks and multimodal pathways to better connect green spaces and amenities such as Dexter Lake. Those turned into what we call patterns. Really, patterns evolved into policies. The group that we work with to develop these, they think of them as synonyms, patterns, and policies. They're urban designers, so policies in their world are patterns. Wide sidewalks, paths, walking and multi-use, two-story mixed-use buildings, awnings, building street frontages, building frontages on the street. So not turning your back to your main thoroughfares. Lined parks, gateways, porches, traffic calming, street trees. That culminated ultimately in the regulating plan. So this is, you take these themes and these ideas and it culminates in this regulating plan, which looks a lot like a zoning map. That's functionally what it is. But the regulating plan really outlines, and if you put up the old zoning map, it looks, at least you blurred your eyes, the themes are essentially the same. You've got public land where it was, you have parks more or less where they were, you have commercial focused areas, and you have some residential areas that live within that same area. But the downtown master plan proposes a form-based code, so based more on look and feel than on do's and don'ts from a use perspective. I think it's really important. There's a request for this. I think it's a good, an important request of distinguishing. Again, this is high-level summary of a lot of material. One of the things that we tried to read through and make sure it was relatively clear was these distinctions geographically. So there are updates that are exclusively about the downtown area. So there are downtown master plan related downtown updates. And it can be easy to confuse some of these. So downtown specifically, we're talking about these new zones. This is where the form-based code is applied. This is where there's the building standard sheets that apply to the area that you just saw a map of. This is where the downtown master plan vision and policies are really focused. Off-street parking requirement exemption, which has come up, it is focused on the downtown zones. That's something that is a downtown specific matter. Specific to areas outside of downtown. So thinking outside of the downtown area, that would be where the proposal is for minimum lot size reduction. That's outside of downtown specific. Proposal accessory dwelling units outside of downtown, single family and duplex dwelling units reduction to 1 required off-street parking space. Access cottage housing, revised lot standards for R1 and R3 zone, essentially associated with minimum lot size proposal. And then citywide, there's a big section in there that is about administrative changes. So it's looking at a types versus the historic model in Lowell of taking each application type and saying, here's how you're going to administer this application type or this land use procedure. Types says we're going to organize it by types and then just say this is a type X, type Y. There's 4 types essentially. And really, so that's citywide. Floodplain code is essentially citywide. That's something that was already adopted that we just folded in for housekeeping. And then there's revised and new definitions that apply. So the way I thought I'd organize this is the Planning Commission prepared passed several motions, and they were specific motions about specific recommendations that they wanted to provide to City Council. And in some instances, staff's recommendation aligns with the Planning Commission's, in others, there's adjustment that doesn't align. So calling those out here to make it clear to the council. So staff's recommendation around a garage setback in the R1 and R3 zones. This came up as a way to the original proposal was to have a 10-foot setback, except all garages, carports, or other parking structures taking access from the front property. They should be set back at least 5 feet. There was some pushback from the first planning commission hearing that we had. There was some echoed pushback. So the conclusion that staff came up with was to remove all language after 10 feet for our recommendation. And this is a recommendation the planning commission was in sync with us. So the proposed language is 10 feet, simply 10 feet without the clarification. The 18-inch elevation requirement is something that's come up in a lot of meetings, a lot of consternation about really an urban design feature that has a tension with accessibility. That was something that we acknowledge. It is a feature that in a lot of instances contributes to the look and feel, contributes to the separation of the public from the private space. But we acknowledge that the accessibility tension there. And so staff's recommendation was originally to keep language as is, revise that, so it sets the requirement directly implements and codifies policies of the downtown master plan. Preserve 18-inch as a recommendation, but not as a requirement. So you have language that provokes the downtown master plan, but obviously in instances where a developer doesn't see that that's appropriate or has other intentions for accessibility, it's not a requirement. Planning Commission's recommendation is to remove the 18-inch requirement as reword policy 4.2 porches and stoops in the downtown master plan, referencing the 18-inch requirement. So the downtown master plan itself points to this feature. Another point of conversation, a lot of these points emerge from the work sessions that we held specifically with the plan. And we had 3 planning commission work sessions to discuss. And then also in there, the deliberations and the hearing, we had some discussion about it. This is essentially, carports are not considered a garage. There's some concern, but we don't call carports garages, then they don't technically have any size limitation, because the size limitation is specific to a garage. So the compelling counterpoint there is that a carport is ultimately limited by lot coverage. It must meet setbacks. At the end of the day, there are size constraints related to carports themselves. And we looked at the planning commission to come up with a recommendation, and they said, well, let's just leave it as it is. So that's how we didn't develop our own recommendation there. So the proposed language around minimum lot sizes. There's been questions about where did this come from. The request was part of the city's submission, the resolution to TGM. Part of the bullet lists of the things that the community wanted to have investigated and addressed. The city's comprehensive plan is very specific about pursuing options, pursuing ways to increase housing alternatives, and actually call that lot size reduction as an instrument to do so. The practice of reducing lot sizes is one common mechanism for communities to address that. Staff's recommendation originally was to keep the minimum lot size for R1 and R3 as proposed at that time, which was 5,500 square feet. Planning Commission's recommendation was to leave the minimum lot size where it is at 7,000 square feet. There was a nuance in our recommendation, which was if you're not going to take 5,500, consider doing something that still represents a reduction. And so our sort of position recommendation is to go to the 6,000. And so that's the recommendation from staff and the recommendation from Planning Commission. This was a city-owned parcel that needed to be essentially reconsidered at the time that this was originally designated in the downtown master plan. The city didn't own it. The city is looking to sell the property ultimately, and so a much more versatile form of land use designation would be a downtown residential related designation as opposed to public lands. That would just tee up a buyer for a real hassle. And so they determined, essentially the question was, which of the types does the commission recommend? And they recommended downtown residential. Facade, this is the last, if not second to last. Facade transparency was a point that the planning commission wanted to emphasize. Currently, facade transparency is just the amount of visual transparency that ground floor development has. So we have windows, windows / transparency. Windows is a much more standardized way of thinking about transparency in your house.
Can't have plastic in it.
So if you imagine, street front spaces, they're more engaging when there's transparency, right? There's more eyes on the street, there's more eyes on what's happening there. So the concept is to preserve that sort of pedestrian, human scale, inviting environment. And so it's the conversation we had our urban designer on the call on the phone at the last hearing, and she noted that the community could go as low as 60%. I think essentially the way she said it was, I wouldn't go any lower than 60%. The downtown master plan isn't specific about proportions. So we noted that and essentially acknowledged that something very similar to the 18-inch requirement. So where we had said before, to keep the language as is because it nested in the policy, we're noting, well, again, rather than requiring it, recommended, keep it as something that if 75% is a recommendation, but it's not a requirement. 60% would be a requirement. Planning Commission's recommendation was to reduce flex 1 and flex 2 facade area minimum from 75% to 60%. So obviously a lot of other things represented in this package and in these ordinances. But these were the key recommendations the planning commission was forwarding. We've had a lot of conversations about the details and look forward to more conversation about those tonight. So that's staff's presentation. Unless I failed to introduce Laura Buell, who sits next to me. That's rude of me. Laura, I asked Laura to join me up here because Henry Hurley, who's my colleague who worked on this code update, frankly, a little more than I did, is helping support the city of Brookings tonight on a similar project. So Laura has joined me from DLCD, the founder of the project, and she's sort of tag team questions and conversation tonight. Questions?
I wanted to just make a clarification. Although the two that you made the change to a recommendation, that was after the last planning commission, so they didn't get a chance to say they would accept that, right?
That's right.
Okay,
You mean
so
where
that,
the two are different?
well, that's not the only, the ones where you've changed since the planning commission heard them. You might have been in sync had they considered that a recommended.
I would say that they reflect the conversation, meaning that our conversation was, well, you might consider this, and it was like, I would like to do this, so we preserved.
I didn't think a recommended thing was a wasn't even an option when I listened, so that's.
Yeah, I would say that the amended staff recommendation was solidified after the planning commission meeting when we reflected on the feedback.
So they might have been in agreement had they had that option to do so. We don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't vote against the
They
recommendation.
didn't vote against, there you go.
That's
We can definitely say that. We can definitely say
Long
that.
way around it, okay.
We can definitely say that. I mean, in some instances, we said, we would suggest that if you're going to not take this, maybe do something that's somewhere between. They selected not to do that. So in a sense, they did that, but not on anything specific. Yeah.
Anybody else? I do have a few. On page 1 to your report, which should be 8 in our packet. I realize it's probably a typographical error, but you have current proposal language, DRA and DRA. Should be DRD. I don't think we're voting on it or acting on it, but
I'm sorry, Mayor, where is it exactly?
on page 1, under 18-inch elevation requirement,
The staff reported in the.
you're,
Oh, and the staff has been.
yeah,
Oh, DRA and DRA, you're saying one of those should be DRD?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't require any further action. When you talk about clear windows over there, like in the library or in our city hall, we have opaque down below where it's not clear all the way up. Would they be, or a heat coating or something like that? Would that be not allowed? Or would they need a waiver to put a heat coating on it for reflecting heat, or, but it says clear, so it doesn't say anything else but that. And so I take it that that's the case, right?
I think there's,
Okay.
I think you're probably right. There are notes on those building sheets that would probably be where it's.
A lot of times people don't want to see people's ankles, you know, so they kind of put things across the bottom of the glass or whatever, so. I don't know if that would be, require a waiver for that.
I mean, the concept of the form-based code is to make things simpler, more
Okay.
effective, more
Okay,
straightforward. So I think.
I just put it out there now. When I was reading this thing, so many little things popped in my head.
Yeah.
Because it's so long that they have time things in there.
Well, I will say that the goal of transparency is not to have windows where people's feet are.
Yeah.
It's to have windows where people
Or-
will see in, yeah. and If
I
I were a builder, I certainly wouldn't have windows where they, in an area that's more likely for people to grow in.
Yeah.
So. It'd probably be higher.
The city-owned property was rezoned to downtown residential. When I look at that on our packet, page 119, I'm not sure where it is in yours. But under 119, I gotta get myself there. It shows a downtown residential A attached and D detached. Okay, and what it says is the parking will be in the rear. So that means, like the lot we're gonna sell, the people are gonna put a driveway and have to go around and park in the rear of their house. Is that what we want? Mr. Collins? See that? And you look under 5 over there on the right side.
So it's DRD, right?
So we're talking about downtown
We're
residential.
talking about
attached.
number 5 there.
Okay, so
Either DRA or DRD, reads the same.
it's gonna be DRD,
Okay, it's gonna be DRD detached.
correct?
Okay, but see the parking constraints on that? Off-street parking?
Or to the side. It shall not be placed between buildings and streets. It's definitely a unique distinction between the downtown.
I'm just reading, I don't know, that is downtown, but is that going to be the case for, well, that's only downtown, that wouldn't be the regular R1s and R3s, but that's for our property that we're selling. Do we
But it
really want
says-
it to be DRA or DRD? And do we want the rest of the people that's inside the downtown area to be restricted to DRAs and DRDs? Or are they gonna be R1s and R3s? I tell you what, I read so much of this, I'm confused, so you can straighten me out.
Every one of the, if you go up 2 pages there, Jeremy. Just for the regulating plan.
Yeah, yes. So this is the adopted zoning
Yeah, those.
for the downtown.
So downtown is a very unique, specific focus of the downtown master plan, and the concept was to face to create an environment where structures are facing the streets. They're inviting, so you're avoiding, again, within this specific area, not the rest of the community, the R1, R3 zone. The rezone that's happened is that little slip right there, which is in the downtown master plan. So in a sense, it's the most. This was the conversation of the planning commission. That is the most residential like downtown master plan zone.
Okay.
But yes, parking in the back is a tenant of the downtown master.
And the same with on Cannon Street there, that's in that light orange, that's a downtown attached. So they have to somehow to get into that, from that back alley into their garage, which is there, so it's there. And same with up there behind where the current city hall is, that'd be the same way with, their parking would enter from the back of the lot.
So it would have to go in off the alley on East First Street then through this alleyway. Is that
But it
correct?
doesn't extend that far, I don't believe.
It goes to the rear of it,
It goes to the corner of it,
right here,
yeah,
and then they have to come in through there.
but that's a mud path, so are we going to gravelize that for them, or that seems like, I don't know, I just, it seems like a problem trying to build itself.
So the purpose of this master plan is to prioritize people. And it acknowledges these are those cars and the cars to access property, et cetera. But the priority is people and making places where people feel comfortable and safe to walk. And so to do that, we have to go back to traditional building styles. And if you think about older neighborhoods, it's the norm for parking to be behind.
Okay,
And if there's an alley, it's often accessed from an alley. If there's not an alley, then the driveway just goes behind the house and there's a garage there, or sometimes the garage is set back a little bit.
I completely accept what you said, except that on our packet on page 351, me and Nelson include a photograph or an area photo of the two houses that be next to it. Both of their garages are in the front. So this person's gonna have his garage in the rear.
And that's going back to a type of building that prioritizes.
I just, everything you say is probably true, just seems wrong.
Does the lot for sure have an alley? Because there is an exception that if there's no alley.
No, there's an alley there.
Front facing garage.
What's that again? I'm sorry.
There is an
Sorry,
exception if there is no alley existing, you can have a front facing garage. You just have to use an alley if it's there.
I didn't say that.
The second
It does.
bullet under note 5,
Okay, then I misread it.
Yeah, it says when no alley exists.
okay.
And then it goes
Well, there's an
back.
alley there, so that means that they have to come in through that alley to get in there.
I don't think this alley would, because it doesn't go all the way behind the property, so that's gonna make access an issue. So functionally, it looks to me like it doesn't exist.
Well, it looks like to me like, we're selling them, all the way up to the far side of the alley. If you look at it on, 351 there, of the packet.
I would just mention 2 points. One is that you're bringing up a good, I think, case study of application of downtown master plan, which is sometimes we hear this, so now everybody has to ...
Okay,
And, you know, the way that the downtown master plan and any code update works is that you'll have,
I just want to make sure when we sell the property that, the people, they go out, they get a house designed and they're gonna have a garage to the side, this over here. They take it down there and they say, well, no, you have to drive in through the back of it. He said, well, that's my backyard, that's where my swimming pool is gonna be.
so I think that the second point is that one advantage is that you can sell with full transparency,
Okay.
right? You can say, here's the deal, this is, so there aren't surprises, that's one advantage.
So is the city gonna maintain that alley? So, right now it's just mud. But is the resident gonna be required to maintain his own alley?
That,
I
I need to look into this case a little bit more, but in the case where there is use of the alleys, we typically require a long-term residential right-of-way permit, which imposes on the user responsibilities as far for maintenance.
Which is probably about the same as the price of the lot. I don't know. It's starting to scare me that, whenever you say, okay, you gotta maintain that lot, pave it, gravel it, or whatever to get in there. And, we're gonna say to this, you know, it looks like something we need to undo before it's done. And, whether we create something, go back to the planning commission to get them to give you a different kind of, something, that you can get out of this, I just don't know. But anyway, that's my thought. I saw that.
You're talking very specifically about that property.
What's that?
You're talking very specifically about
Very
that.
specifically about that one. If the city owns it, we're trying to sell it. And then when I look at it, I see that the person's going to have to drive in through that mud, trail in there, single lane. And I just bring it up, you know, I'm not gonna resolve it, I'll let people resolve it. And all the minimum lot sizes throughout this thing is 7,000 feet now, right? In downtown, in the residential, outside the zoned areas and stuff like that. That's the way I read it.
That's not.
Okay.
No, the downtown zone has nuance to that. The downtown area.
Right, it's 7,000.
Commercial.
And everything outside that's not in the downtown remains at 7,000, right?
You're talking about right now.
Right, what it's going to be,
What it's going to be is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a proposal.
right,
for
okay, the
5,500.
proposal is to have. In the downtown segment and the lots outside of it, both be 7,000, correct?
The downtown master plan has distinct building standards, lot size.
So the R1 and R2 that we're talking about would be either lower or kind of the same.
R1 and R3 are the ones side of the downtown that are under consideration for a range of minimum lot sizes.
And the proposal was 7,000, right?
That was the planning
That's
commission's
existing.
recommendation.
Okay, that's what I
That's
mean,
the existing.
yeah,
That's what
that's,
we
No change outside of downtown, it's planning commission's existing range.
okay, let's, back up to page 113. Which would be 77 of your, packet. And here, it's, under B1, a single family dwelling or manufactured dwelling. You lined out manufactured dwelling, does that mean they're not included, or they're just not want to, they're not gonna break them out as different?
Yeah, so I can address that.
Okay.
There was some legislation recently passed that made the ability of cities to distinguish between single family dwellings and manufactured dwellings, prefab homes, even less. And so the best way to deal with that is just to treat a dwelling as a dwelling, and not break out what type of dwelling it is. So what we did was we added manufactured homes and prefab homes to the definition of dwelling. And then we took out references to manufactured dwellings.
Okay.
Dwelling includes all of that. Okay. So, manufactured dwellings are allowed, and state law requires it to be allowed.
Okay. Going forward to, your packet 175, 211. Manufactured dwelling parks. Does that still apply? Since we're not differentiating between different kinds of housing?
Yes, because this is a different type of land use. So manufactured dwelling parks don't have separate lots.
Okay.
But you will notice that we added prefabricated structures in there, which has a definition of state law. And that's to comply with the statute that requires those to be allowed in manufactured dwelling.
Okay, so you can have a section of town that's just, prefab homes, where it sounds like to me, this is, someone can put together a development of just manufactured homes. Is that what that's saying?
Well,
When
we
it says
didn't change.
manufactured dwelling parks, to me, sounds like, are you talking about just a park full like, RVs or double wides or things like that, or are you talking about,
So this is existing language in your code.
Okay.
We didn't add the manufactured dwelling.
I-
We just included the prefabricated structures. But the rest of it was already in your code.
You gave me the whole thing, you made me read it all, so I found all kinds of things.
Only the red parts are. new.
Okay. Back up to 113, page 113 of the packet, which is 77 of your thing. Let's see here. And it falls down at the bottom of the page, 5,500, but that's gonna be 7,000, correct? If we vote on it?
No vote. There's been no vote on that.
Okay, so what's it gonna be?
Not there yet. We're not there yet, Tom. We haven't voted on it.
I know, but, so, okay, but the one was, submitted by the planning commission was 7,000, correct?
The
That line
planning
item.
commission said do not change lot size for R1 and R3 zones. And staff said, okay, if you don't want 5,500, what about 6,000? That's
Okay,
it.
yeah. So,
to address your comprehensive plan.
So this is R1. And I see it at 5,500 and you're saying no changes, right?
Say that again.
This here is for R1. Single family residential R1. And it's saying development standard minimum lot area is 5,500. Is that still
So it's proposed.
as proposed?
So there's sort of a distinction between this proposal and then the revisions that are.
So the revision is 7,000.
That's the recommendation. By the
So-
planning.
That's what we'd be working on, okay?
That's right. We can be-
And the same on a couple pages down for the R3s, that would be either 5,500 or 7,000, depending on how we vote, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Or six.
With that.
Or six. Or something else would come up.
Yeah, okay, some other number.
5,250.
When I got to 78. See, what was it? I see this yard. 10-foot, alley 10-foot, rear 10-foot, and then we have a whole bunch of other verbiage. What? And I appreciated Mia Nelson sending the letter to us, and as far as I could see, and I can't disagree with anything she said in it, is that the rear yard 10 feet, side alley 10 feet, and the front yard 10 feet, or street 10 feet.
So this
Is that something we're gonna be voting on, or are we also voting on all this other 10-foot side facing garages, carports and all that?
So one of the specific things that the planning commission has asked you to consider specifically and their recommendation, and it's consistent with staff's, is to remove all of the language after 10 feet.
I agree with that, okay. So I still see it in there, so I just, I see this thing, it's altered, and I understand it's gonna be re-altered. And so,
Yeah, it's tricky.
whenever I know we'll get to vote on it later, but, when it's been, updated and everything, but, it still worries me.
Well, one of the things that might reassure you, at least on some of these points, is that the planning commission made motions that you can act on specifically. So it's something, so those are things that are a little bit easier to make a motion around.
And then what, especially with these things, the hillside lots aren't gonna be square. And I have one that looks square, but it falls off, and so, and she even was nice enough to put a picture of my house in there from above, just to make sure that, didn't try to sway the, electric. And, but no, I will say that, whatever page it was on, it's way down, 350 something, but, whenever I designed how I wanted my house going out, when I first went to working on it, it came off the street, did one of those things in a quick 90, and they were nice enough to go to the city and get a waiver for me to come in off a side street and come on in down, and made it much easier for me to actually get into my yard and everything like that. Let's get this on here, but I just, not sure what I'm going with that, but anyway, just gonna say that the hillsides, they're tough. It's on 354, but you can't always stick them in square because you got creeks, you got points, you got trees that you want to keep and stuff like that. So needs to be more flexibility is what I'm trying to say. In fact, there's one house in here, it's in the Wedlow district that hasn't been bought on yet, and I have no idea how that I was gonna ever build on it. It's like building on this table here. It's about how wide and how long it is. So good luck to him. Okay, let's, Mia brought up two important things. This, and they went all the way back to January, so I believe they've been covered. But on 349 and 356, there was a measure 49. I want to make sure that what we do doesn't, and 356 is probably what the wording is, that we don't stub our toe on any of this.
I think what we concluded, with the further analysis and the adjustment, essentially the garage setback adjustment, was that by not changing that we weren't, imposing an additional requirement on those properties that would have arguably needed that notice.
Yeah.
And so by removing that, and by the decision-making bodies deciding to remove that, that we have in fact.
So that would handle 349 where, we're not affecting, the fair value of the property, where they can do what.
That was the
Yeah.
position.
Yeah. And the other was, 356, which was on page 356, and that was, measure 56. Provide a certain property owners advance visual notice. I'm sure that we put out the proper amount of notice for tonight's meeting and your meeting and everything else like that, right?
That's right. If given the adjustments.
And, okay, let's back up to page, 87 of your packet. I think that's about 114 if my mind remembers. I'm 78, I'm sorry, 78. Dyslexia. Okay, in this, there maybe it's before. Let's see what we can do. I'm looking for these pictures of the dwellings, the downtown stuff. Okay. They're, or, okay, no, it's, 9.411. That would be 7. That would be about 114. Okay, there. Let's see if I can find it. It speaks of having, okay, there it is. Maximum building height, 2 stories, including basement, or, okay, 30 foot, okay, that's not it. There was one in some of these in here, they showed 30-foot lit widths. Is that for like a panhandle type getting into it? Or is that for actually putting a dwelling on?
I think you're referring to the R1, 30-foot.
Yes.
So that, it's the width, the minimum, or actually, it's, yeah, is it R1 or R2? What, I can't remember which.
R1.
R1. So it's 30 by 80.
Right.
And you couldn't have the minimum on both of those. Because that would be a 2,400 square foot lot, which is much smaller
Right.
than what the zone would allow, even with the lowest of the proposals that have been made. So what that does is it allows more flexibility in configuring the lot. And it allows more options to avoid cookie cutter type subdivisions.
That's kind of like a cul-de-sac where it'd be kind of like a V where you'd be into a spot there where you have a 30-foot wide. Is that the idea of thinking behind something narrow front lot?
So 30 feet, yeah, 30 feet is not terribly narrow. There are some cities where that's a standard lot width. And because one of those dimensions is going to have to be larger than what the minimum is, it allows variety and it allows creativity and flexibility. If you're dealing with topography or you're wanting to have some more affordable lots and some more expensive lots, it just allows.
I think of row homes when I think of that. I like San Francisco, 30-foot.
No, 30 is much too wide for row homes. It's, yeah, row homes require maximum 20.
Okay, so.
So,
Which I think is another question you had. Mayor.
Okay. No, I just saw that and, because like you say, they're 20-foot wide or 30-foot wide with 2,000 square feet, which is not Would be,
So you would need a 200 feet deep lot if you're talking a parallel with ground. To meet the 6,000 foot proposal.
Yeah.
Now, so do the math for each level of that.
I mean, there is, cut me off, Laura, if I'm wrong, but there is a certain relationship to the minimum lot size and the lot width conversation. Is that true?
I mean, they don't have to be related, because even when we were discussing, because the code committee recommended much smaller lots. But even that recommendation was larger than going the minimum width and depth.
Okay.
What this does is it provides flexibility, and it's still an extremely buildable lot.
It doesn't prohibit.
Yeah, it's just a minimum. I mean, it's not a requirement.
that, answers the biggest part of my questions about that packet, but, just to kind of go over this, we got some, mails from, residents, and these, some I've discussed with Jeremy, some I haven't, but, they talked about parking downtown. And, I could see the concern down there, for the businesses. I think that, we as a council or whatever need to come forward and see about putting 2-hour parking or something like that restriction, because otherwise the people living in apartments upstairs, he's gonna park his boat down there for weeks at a time, unless he's told to move it. So anyway, but, that was one person's concern. 18-inch, step up, that was, that's been eliminated. 5,500, 7,000. You know, one of the benefits of living out in the country and the rules that you get a little bit of extra space. And I know they brought up the part about being more affordable, but there's a little home over here behind Bridgetown, 900 plus square feet, $300,000, $313 a square foot. I mean, that's not cheap. And there's another one that's over there, $485 a square foot. So affordable home. Homes have left town, you know, it just, you know, it's gonna be hard for someone to get a starter home to start off. Hope, maybe on the 150 acres to the east out here, they'll put some sort of something, more cottages or something like that. ADUs, I didn't care for those, but I tell you what, that's the future. That's what it is. ADUs, you know, grandma, grandpa coming back, want to live, and put them, you know, you build a place for them. And I know I came out of San Jose, there was so many people building ADUs against code that the city finally gave up and said, yes, build them. Like, we're not even going, we don't even want to be part of this anymore. So they allowed them to go ahead and start building ADUs whenever they could. So, and you always got kids that don't want to leave home, so you have
Moving out the backyard.
backyard. But the main thing is I was extremely happy to see the letters that we got from people, because quite often whenever we make these decisions, we make them without outside input, and we try our best, but every once in a while we swing and miss. So this is good that they came forward early enough in the process to actually make an impact on it. So I appreciate everybody that wrote letters, and thank them for it. I finished for this part. I can save something for 310. You put 371 pages in the packet.
You can take a
You're
minute.
gonna get a review.
We need 200 more, Bill.
Okay, we're on the best things now, so so we'll open this up for public comment. Do we have any public wants to comment?
I appreciate what you've said, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with you entirely. This is a unique community. And narrowing or reducing the lot size outside the basic property that's there now, it's on terrain that's difficult to build on. So if you make it smaller, it's going to make it more difficult to build a house that you can navigate around with parking and so forth. And most people move out here because they want to I'm going to say recreate, that's not correct, recreate, I should say. And they have a boat for a motorhome, and we need to be mindful of that. And there again, hillsides are coming closer and closer because of the terrain and expansion. So I really agree with you that we really shouldn't reduce the lot size outside the downtown area, because people want to come out here. We have such a beautiful place. Why restrict it? We're favoured if we can keep those sizes like that. So I appreciate what you said, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you.
Mr. Mayor,
His name
could we please, could we please get the last gentleman's name and address for the
I
record?
was gonna tell you who he was. No.
George Wild. What more do you need?
Address.
PO Box 2224, Lowell. Military number 5592660. Oh, I didn't PO Box 2224. I won't give it because it was on YouTube. What if it was internal? But I disagree with you.
My name is Bill George, and I live on Marina Vista Drive. I am on the planning commission, and I'd like to make a couple of comments. One about the downtown design. You said at our meeting that you took a survey of the townspeople, and they all liked what you showed them, and they picked that one. However, I don't think any of them ever realized how expensive it was to build that particular plan. And you don't have the luxury of a downtown already to build on. And to get a builder to come here and have to pay that much money to put something together just may not happen. So I agree, it's a great design, except then there is no parking that I can see. And that is a real difficult problem, especially if you have a business and you can't park it. Jerry Valencia is building a downtown, according to the plan, upstairs apartments, downtown stores, and he has parking. And I would suggest to you that we wait and see how successful he's going to be. Because if he is, that will bring other people's money into town. As far as the lot size is concerned, you guys told us at the planning commission, we're the only city in Lane County that has a minimum size lot of 7,000 square feet. I built some houses here in town, and on the land that I had, I couldn't, the way it was designed, I had to come to the council and request to build 4 houses on 3 houses on small lots. And I did this in 07 or 08, I think. And when I sold those houses, and I could only do 2-story houses, when I sold them, I got as much money for them as anybody was getting on a 7,000 foot lot and or top of the market. And you did say to me, well, you know, if the developer wants to build a house, make larger lot sizes, he can. Do you really think that he will? If he has a plot of land and he can get 2 more lots out of it at 5,500 than he could at 7, do you think he's going to do that? I respectfully say no, because the builder, he's going to build these houses and sell them and get the hell out of town and find another project. He doesn't care about what he leaves behind. I do, because I was a builder in this town. And the property that I bought was all set up for small lots. And I spent a lot of money rearranging the power and the water and on these lots to make them 7,000 square feet. Because the city said to me, you can't do it any other way. You got to make them 7,000. I'm glad I did it. It's a nice community. It's up off of 4th Street. And I just think when you're deciding something, make sure you look at the dollars and make sure that those dollars make sense to somebody who's gonna come to town and build here. And one of the advantages you have is a larger lot size. Because people want to live out here because they want a little more space. Place to put their camper or whatever. You're making designs on a 5,500 square lot, and I can't, in my mind, figure out how you're gonna do all that stuff. There's carports and, you know, after a while, if you're looking at 10 feet from here and 10 feet from there, before you can even build anything, pretty soon you can only just go higher. So that's what I have to say, guys. I was where you were. It's not fun, but just think about the dollars, because that's gonna save us.
Right, Bill. Anyone else?
Amelia Nelson, live on First Street. I'd just like to give you a different view on the 7,000 lot thing. Just from a more practical perspective, the cause and effects, who benefits from this, who's hurt. I have also been a developer. I've been a realtor and a contractor, and I also spent 7 years working for a statewide nonprofit in affordable housing. So I know it isn't actually true that it doesn't matter how big the lots are. It is a fact that lot size directly correlates to lot price. Making lots twice as big, it makes them twice as expensive because all the costs are related to size. You got raw land, you got street frontage and utilities, and the area of stormwater collection. It's just a metric. And expensive lots start a sort of cascade of effects, and they lead directly to a more expensive house. When I moved to Lowell in the 80s, a 7,000 square foot lot, it cost about $8,000. And it was not considered large in those days, in the 1980s. Today, a lot that size, it's 10 times that much money. And it is now on the far upper end of what any city in Oregon would require. And I hope you'll ask the DLCD staff person if you're not sure that I'm right about that. In fact, some cities are now imposing maximum lot sizes where they won't let you go bigger. And this is all in an effort to rein in this large lot, large house cycle. That's how important this is. Starting with a 7,000 square foot lot, paying what the developer has to charge to make it pencil, it is just not possible to build a small affordable house. It's darn tough anyway, as you mentioned. Even it's hard to even build small houses, but the bigger they are, the more they cost. I own a duplex in Eugene on a 4,800 square foot lot. It's 3 bedroom, 2 baths, both sides, nice yard, garage, and it's 4,800 square feet. That's a new normal in Oregon. Lowell hasn't changed with the times. And the only reason we got the wonderful St. Vincent de Paul development is because Lane County gave Lowell the land for free and paid for most of the improvements. Otherwise, forget it. That would not have happened. Big lot equals big house. Is that a bad thing? Well, that, again, now here, it depends on who you ask. Here's some facts from Lowell's census. The median value of a Lowell house is $209,000. Compare that to the Oregon average, $362,000. The median income in Lowell is only $52,000 for the household. The Oregon average is $70,000. If we use standard affordability metrics, half the households in Lowell, they cannot afford a house if it costs more than roughly $209,000. But the problem is all the new housing costs 2 times that much or more. That new development across from the industrial park on Rockcrest, every one of those homes sold for the mid 400s and 500s, 7,000 square feet and up lots. And here's what that means to us. Gentrification of Lowell is already underway. It's aggressively going to continue without a change in your policy. And over time, the people that now live in Lowell, they're going to be displaced and outnumbered by newcomers with much more money. People who grew up here, not going to be able to afford a home here. They're going to be replaced by outsiders who can. And if that's what Lowell wants, by all means, keep on going. 7,000 square feet all the way. But let's just admit it, at least, who is benefiting from gentrification? People like me that own vacant land. People that already own bigger and fancier houses, developers. The more expensive housing gets, the more our property's worth. And at the planning commission hearing, and again tonight, sure enough, we have multiple developers, multiple people, several people who live on 2-acre lots coming here and telling you, this is the country, we need to keep it rural. This is not the country, this is a town. We had a person at the planning commission meeting ridicule the people living in St. Vincent de Paul developments, pointing at that and saying, we don't want any more of that, keep the lots big. Another developer said he wanted to keep the lots large to make Lowell attractive to future developers. Just, take that in for a minute. It's fair to say that those voices are the reason you got the 2-1 recommendation. Planning Commission, keep the 7,000. That was not a consensus from the Planning Commission. Those other voices were drowned out. And this finally is just another fact of life that you should consider. This world of public hearings, and I've attended hundreds in my former job. Public hearings, Planning Commission, city councils, they're populated by those of us who've already got ours. The people who need the affordable housing, they're never in the room when these decisions are made. They're not at the table. They weren't at the table at the planning commission. They're not here tonight. The kids who might want to keep living here when they're grown, I don't see them. They're not here. The renters people who hope to buy their own place, they're not here. Like all the other developers in town, like most of the others who already live on acreage or have a big house, I will not be upset if you keep the 7,000 square foot. My kids already live here. I've got mine. Making Lowell more upscale and more exclusive, that only helps me financially. But I have heartburn about limiting housing choices for other people. I have heartburn about shutting people out. And I think that we should consider this everyone's problem to solve, where we all do our part and we think about what other people need. And so I urge you to just set aside that planning commission recommendation and make your own decision on what to do. And I hope you'll revisit staff's original recommendation of 5,500 square feet. They had a lot of good reasons and data, and I hope you'll ask them to share with you what they had. I don't think 6,000 goes far enough to make the kind of impact on affordable housing that we need. Thanks so much, and good luck with your decision.
Jimmy Martini, West Main Lowell. First off, on the city lot that's coming up for sale with the alleyway, if I were going to purchase that lot, I would say put some rock down on it, and I would have no problem at all signing some sort of maintenance agreement. And having that backdoor access, I actually prefer. Keeping that street frontage, especially having vested interest in downtown. So I don't see that as too much of an issue. Obviously, getting the rock down and getting that set first is some sort of capital outlay. I don't see that. I'm very excited to see the downtown master plan coming to a head. It's been a very long and I hope fruitful process. The suggested changes you are reviewing will give city staff more clarity on project reviews, which should result in quicker turnaround, quicker construction / project completion. These changes will also provide a solid and defined growth plan for Lowell downtown. And to your point, I am in the process of purchasing a lot downtown, which would be subject to that minimum 2-story. And I see the downtown plan as a great opportunity, not a hindrance. An area of interesting discussion, obviously, has been lot size, the minimum lot size. In Lowell's comprehensive plan, one of our goals is affordable housing as a city. And there are very few levers we can pull to help achieve this goal. However, one of those levers is lot size. The current recommendation to reduce the minimum lot size from 7,000 to 5,500 I think is great. And by accepting this change, the city will increase the number of homes that could be built within our existing urban growth boundary, and in return will reduce the overall cost of a new home. More buildable lots means more homes available to construct and purchase, which would most likely translate to lower costs. Increasing supply, lower costs. I would like to see the city take advantage of this opportunity to achieve its goal of creating more affordable housing. I talked to Jerry at the Planning Commission last time. He's got the development on Jazzy Loop. He's doing 7,000 minimum. And I asked him, I said, if this were in place before you set that up, would you go smaller? And he said no. Again, just remember, this is a suggested minimum and not a required. Cresswell. So my son married a gal from Cresswell. Her parents own a house in Swale, which was referenced in your report. It's on a smaller lot. I believe it's 6,000, maybe even smaller than that. They have a boat. They park it off street. They don't park it on the street. I mean, they have all their amenities that they want. It's a great house. It's a great place to be. They got a nice backyard. We love going there. We love visiting, and we're just going to enjoy their house. Anyway, I am in favor of adopting the Lowell downtown, and I really encourage you guys to look at the 5,500 square feet. To be honest, I was hoping it would be even smaller than that. And, anyway. Love.
Burn, 566 First Street. Currently living on 7,000 here, 7,000 square foot home. And the home covers 2/3 of that. The front portion of it is on a hill, unusual. It's there, though, and that's part of my lot. Now, if I take the back part of my lot and reduce it to 5,000 square feet, I'm building right up to the very edge, the whole property on some of both sides. Now, I feel I'm into a position where I've got mine, that, can somebody afford to build on the side hill with 5,000 square feet? Really don't think you can do that. What do you think? Can you build it?
How many square feet is your house?
My house is about 3,500 square feet.
Oh, God, you wouldn't build a 35, that's not it. Try 1,200.
If you can do that, fine. But, still, I don't think you can do that and have it on the side hill like that. Anyway, we should think about those things too. We do have hills. And, you know, you damn if you do and damn if you don't. What it amounts to. So you set the rules, go with flow. Hopefully, the prices will stay low for average Joe that wants to live here and gets raised. You can afford it. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think you'll see the prices stay high. You've got developers and they're here to make money. They're not here to make people happy. Thank you.
Anything for the council? Then we close the, this portion of it at 8:12, looks like. And we go right on into opening up the public hearing for ordinance 310. And ordinance, approving the rezoning and properties contained within the boundaries of the cultivated, plan. Adopting a new zoning and comprehensive map plan and revising regulating that plan. The same format of the public hearing before I read. And Mr. Connell, you want to introduce presenter?
Yes.
Mayor, what page does it start on? What page does that start on?
About the 310. Wait a minute.
There's any cemetery.
31.
University. Yeah.
31. 31.
31. Look at it. Just.
Oh, well, you're talking about the.
Where?
310.
No, that is the ordinance is at 3:10.
It'd be up to 3 page. Well,
There's 31.
go down to the big print. Or the comprehensive plan. Are you talking about the zoning or the comprehensive plan?
It's all figured out.
The ordinance is.
It's on page 31.
31.
Page 31.
The ordinance.
All right, Bears. What ordinance 310 does is it's going to rezone multiple properties throughout the city so that they match up to the downtown regulated plan. And Jake presented earlier in his discussion, recommendations from the planning commission on 2 properties. One is the city property and another is a parks property. And that's essentially what ordinance 310 is going to accomplish.
Anything, Jay?
No, again, I blended the story into one narrative, essentially, the text amendments and the zoning change both are interdependent, so. From an ordinance perspective, we divide out the act of changing the zoning for specific properties, and then the other ordinance is about changing the text of specific documents. So, same story, nothing really to add.
Any questions for Jake? When I looked at this comprehensive plan 2005, it was like going back in time in high school, reading an old history book about something that was even happening even prior to that, you know, and nothing I knew anything about. But anyway, this, and I know that Lon had a letter, and he's going to speak to it, but I think at the very minimum, I don't know how much it costs. I don't want to redo the whole plan, because if we could somehow, under these sections, relate it to a link of the US Census people, they put out numbers on anything and everything. Somehow link this to something that's actually happened in the 2020 era, because like, you know, it has numbers in here. It's talking about 1960, you know, we were barely incorporated. It's got those numbers in there. 60 years ago. And they may all be useful. It may, somebody may enjoy reading those kind of numbers, but it doesn't tell you about anything today. And you know, just going on, you know, it does take a lot of searching. We have a 2020 census. Census says we have 1,196 people. So you know, but for this thing to go on here, and it tells me that we have 1,000, whatever it is, in 2020 years ago, it's really a useless document in all parts of that. You know, the parts of it that gives instructions and all this kind of stuff is good, but it seems like for the parts where it has numbers involved, number of residences, the population, just if there should just, if in the very least, make a link to something that actually has some actual accurate. Yes, sir, please.
Certainly not an uncommon, it sounds like Laura had a comment too, but I'll just note that this is just an observation in working with a lot of smaller communities. It's not unusual at all that you have this sort of narrative, the inventory section of a, when you make a big push to update your comprehensive plan, you do like an element of the comprehensive plan, so the housing, the economic development, or these natural resources. Then you would make a push, you would do analysis, and then immediately, I mean, just within a week, it's dated information, right? I've seen some entities, however, and you are making a 20-year plan though, right? Typically, you're forecasting information. I've seen some communities who have, this is just anecdotal, who have really trimmed down their comprehensive plans to make them statements of goal policy. They just kind of severed that piece for exactly the reason you just mentioned, which is this is analysis that's going to be dated soon. Policies, however, are something that we hold to, and that's an observation. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Whatever you want to do there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not uncommon, but what I do find routinely is that, cities have comprehensive plans that can be sometimes a decade or two or more old, yet they still haven't achieved all the goals laid out in those plans. And so those plans are not fulfilled. And actually, part of the work that we're doing in this project is fulfilling some of the goals of your plan. The downtown master plan is a goal that's in your plan. And if we approve these code amendments today, you can check that one off in your comp plan. Reducing lot sizes, that's a goal in your plan. You can check that one off. So you have lots of goals in your plan, some of which have been checked off and many of which have not. So the comp plan is still a very valid document for Lowell. The other thing is that in TGM code projects, we don't overhaul or comp plans. That's not something that we are able to do. What we do and we must do is make surgical amendments that are necessary to make the code work. And so that's what we've done here. So we haven't gone through and changed everything that you might see that could be updated. We're making the specific necessary
Yes.
amendments to support the code amendments.
So.
Yeah.
But I think we've, as a group, we've said, okay, what's our buildable acreage? You know, we've asked some questions that we'd like to have the answers to, but you know, I'm sure they're out there, but you know, have to just search them out and everything. But I like the idea of just putting down goals and things like that instead of listing numbers that, like, as he said, goes out of date almost immediately. And you know, when we do these plans, quite often the people, they see us as a council and as setting up these master plans, kind of like do no harm, you know. And what Mia said, you know, or somebody said, people don't show up. They just figure that, okay, you're not going to impact me in any way. So, but and like the parks, and you know, when we said we're going to spend $500,000 at Paul Fisher, we're going to spend $1 million over Rolling Rock. Well, those were all nice numbers, but you know, they weren't valid. They had no, they were just high in the sky. They were dreams. And so, but it didn't impact anybody. So we weren't going to harm anybody because we didn't do anything. We're not doing anything on them. So it's good to a degree. But this here, when we set down these guidelines, this here, we can do harm if we're not careful. So that's the reason I got long-winded, I guess. So, but anyway, or got to reading this thing, and so we're making decisions that's going to impact the guy that's going to start building in 6 months. So he's going to have to go by these. But the thing about it, if I look at the homes up there, over there, and what's been built recently, and we're basically changing, we're settling on a plan that's pretty much the home is being built. They all have flat fronts, they have all the garages, you know, along the front, there's no setback or anything like that. What you have, you know, just so, you know, we're kind of codifying in a way what we've been doing, how we've been doing it. So that's my own thought. Anyway, I'm out of words. I think I should be. Thank you. All right, staff report. No other comments besides myself. Public comments. Anybody? Yes, Bob.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, really, I'd like to amend my comments to my previous statement. We only have 25. I'm not in a cash. In the meantime, my own credit on the property is only 1,500 square feet. We thought that was it. So I'm going up and having to put a basement in. The developer said, well, you got a dig for it. Let's go ahead and dig this and build it up. And yeah, I've got 1,500 square feet up and 1,000 square feet down. And I'm just being very small with 1,500 square foot. What? I have usable property about 20, maybe 20 feet in the back, all the way across the backside, and that's it. If I want to make a garden, it would be cut off. The next door neighbor bought the full lot He has a full white garden going. He works at it. So, 200.
I do understand slopes. Anybody else? Okay, I do understand slopes. I think I've got it more than 30 foot from front to back on mine, so it's, I knew it when I bought it, I knew it when I designed it, and I was happy with it. I can't complain, but it slopes are tough. You end up with the parts of your house that, or your, I tell you what, when I look at the homes over in Rock Crest, and I see those big yards in the background, and you know, I think of families and big yards and just people having something to do, but I know they gotta water, they gotta maintain and stuff like that, so. Darn if you do, darn if you don't, as she said. Okay, then the public hearing is closed at 8:26. And the regular meeting is reconvened at 8:26. So we're on to new business. First reading of the ordinance 309. An ordinance adopting text amendment in Lowell's development text and amendments to Lowell's comprehensive plan outlining the Lowell downtown master plan. Mr. Connell, was this presented in enough ways that we can read all this by text?
Yes,
Okay, so we don't have to read the whole
correct.
271 pages.
That's correct. After you've already read the title, well, I'll let you do your thing.
Right.
And after subsection A, I have a comment that I'd like to make.
Get back on home site. I don't think I have anything else to say besides asking for a motion. Do you have something before that?
Well, in 2 weeks' time, yes, I do, Mayor. In 2 weeks' time, we're gonna be coming back to the council for a second reading and a vote on approval, and I believe this is an opportune time to get direction from the council on if the council concurs with the planning commission's recommendations, or if there are other direction you'd like to take things so that we have clarity on the final text to present before you.
I think everybody saw the suggested whatever they're called. The public the planning commission recommendation. I guess the question to ask is, are there any of them that we feel opposed to?
So I'm trying to marry these two documents, the original staff report addendum, which outlined the ones, and then this one is updated to this.
That's right.
So, so garage setback, both the planning commission and staff recommended the same.
Yep.
Right?
All the language after 10 feet.
That was for street side
That's
and
the garage.
back, or what, I'll just say 10 feet, no other verbiage.
Right.
Okay.
So, but the 18-inch requirement, there was, disagreement, but then you added in the recommendation rather than a requirement, and so that does change this. I didn't know that was an option. So, you know, it seemed like it was, you had to or not, so that now you had required or not, so having that be a recommended thing, I fully support. And I think that that's what we're going for is flexibility, and that makes sense. We're not gonna, this stoop is not gonna make for one really good development and one really crappy development if one has 16 inches and one has 10. So if those are, we can incorporate that into this addendum. And then same with the facade. Again, didn't know that that could be recommended. Because again, we're trying to be flexible, trying to go for a look or whatever, but I think it's important that the people that put their money into it get to be more detailed about the specifics. If we're gonna truly do flexibility, and obviously, something nice.
I
So-
think at the heart of both of those things was preserving some integrity of the master plan, right? So the
Right.
master plan does say, hey, if you're trying to go for this look and feel, this is what we'd recommend. What we heard was pretty compelling, particularly about the 18 inches around ADA, just accessibility, and it's like, I think you need to create that flexibility. So the recommendation doesn't have teeth, but it makes the message of the downtown master plan.
And keeps everything in
conveyed a
sync.
little bit more. Yeah.
So same with the facade, the carports is taken care of, the city-owned parcel, that's. And is the city-owned parcel, is that recommendation, that's in the 310? See, I'm not sure how we're supposed to do these breaking down by 309 and 310. Because
310 would be,
the city-owned and the school-owned rezoning only, is that correct? Well, plus it's all putting all the rest of the language into the revised code, so it's not elegant here. As we say.
it's,
So anyway, I think I just have, the other ones that we're talking about where there's options and you're looking for direction to go forward for the second reading. Right, so that's mostly, those are all in 309, the one where there's kind of maybe a
Yeah.
discrepancy,
I
right?
think that's right.
That would be.
Yeah, so again, I like that you came in through with the recommended to keep the plan in place. I wanna hear from some more people about where you're going with, I've got some ideas about the minimum lot size too, but I don't wanna dominate the conversation. Maybe it's a shot.
Well, you brought it up, so I think it's a great segue. On the minimum lot, I kept coming back to what our stated goal was as a city in our plan and addressing affordability. And I really appreciate all the public comments and the letters that we received. And the fact that there wasn't consensus from the planning committee, that there isn't consensus from what we're hearing from the community. We're hearing passionate arguments for keeping it 7,000, dropping all the way down to 55. So I'm really comfortable with your kind of compromise, middle of the road approach at 6,000. I actually personally would be happy with 5,500 if that's the feeling of council, but I would still be happy with 6,000. So I wanted to start with that.
I'll take off on that one. I think it's interesting, a couple of meetings ago, we're talking about gigantic SDCs and enormous costs to our city to add systems to allow us to build outside the bottom of the valley. And by keeping lot sizes large, we kind of force that growth up the hill. And actually cost us as a community more money, because to meet that drive of the build up the hill, we have to build those auxiliary pumping stations or auxiliary water towers that are an enormous cost to the city. So I think it's interesting, we're talking about basically to allow those larger lot sizes to exist, we're actually going to cost more money to us as a community. Because if we can increase the number of houses we can build at the bottom of the valley, those can be fed by the current water system and the current design system of no auxiliary pumps, gravity fed, other than pumping up to the tower. So I think there's a really direct correlation there between, yeah, we preserve one thing, but we really shoot ourselves in the foot from the other side is how, if now we have less people even here, then how do we pay for those millions of dollars of improvements to the water system to support that run up the hill? So I think there's a real issue there about where we go with this that I think hasn't even been considered. I also agree with Jimmy that I would even support those smaller housing sizes because it's not a requirement that people build a 5,500 or a 6,000 square foot lot. If people want to build on the hill and there's issues with it, they'll pay to do that. People work their way around that and they might even have the funding to provide the engineering that's required to do that, and the architectural things that you do that. People that need to build down in the flats, they don't have those kind of things. They're building houses from Adair, they're building houses from those kind of things. And they just don't have the funds to support those kind of things. So it's, you know, there's no requirement that somebody built on a 5,500 or 6,000 square foot lot. You can build as big as you want. And so, I think those two don't agree with themselves in terms of, you know, I feel like some people tonight stated that, like, that's where we have to be, like, it's gonna be 5,500, so everybody's gonna do it. I don't think it's gonna go that way. I think people still want large houses that can afford it. I think people still want large lots that can afford it, and they will still do that, so.
I got kind of a different take on this. I appreciate the whole land use planning process, you know, and when I first came, I think it was our joint meeting where I first heard about flex zoning and stuff. And I love that because I love the mixed use. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. Why the minimum lot size was even in here seems really inappropriate at this time. And it's evidenced by all people's different opinions, because it's not really, it hasn't been through the same rigor as the downtown master plan and then the code developed to implement that. So we're taking a major piece of what we have here and making a decision today without study at all. I mean, really no study. We haven't had, and it alludes to this in the comp plan about, you know, the things that we need to the comprehensive plan is, you know, a living document. We need some studies. We need a downtown development plan. Like I said, check that off. We need a water system master plan. We got that. Now we got the sewer plan, parks and rec, and the other one's a buildable lands inventory. And we don't have that, and we haven't had that. And there's a lot of elements. If you read through here on growth management in the comp plan about what goes into making those decisions, it's a lot about where we are today and where we're headed. In hillsides, as you know, there's constrained development. It doesn't matter what that lot size is. It's the constraints against that. We don't know what the constraint, there's, again, old numbers, Don, but that's the point. It says, you know, of so many acres, some aren't constrained, and so you can assume square footage, and some are. And what is unclear is the level to which the constrained lands may be developable until a more detailed study can be made of the above identified development constraints. That's just on the constrained land. That's not to do with everything else. We don't even know what we have. My point about making a rash decision, and planning takes forever, so, you know, that's rash decision is, you know, 2 years. So, but if we were to go from 5,500 to 7, you can undo that. But when you go from 7 to 5,500 and then this whole, I'm pointing the wrong way, I'm sure, gets built out, you can't unring that bell. And if we do that without good study and good numbers and good analysis and good evaluation, and this is one that is going to hit residents and more so than the downtown master plan. That's going to more, you know, the developers. I think it would be prudent to do, whether it's a streamlined housing analysis that I think I talked to Laura about months ago, or an actual buildable lands inventory. And I know these things cost money, but this is important. This is our way of living. This is our quality of life. This is, you know, making what we want. We're constrained already by not having any land in the UGB between the city limits. So we're fixed. And, you know, to get any more land, it has to be totally built out. So that's just a matter of time. And I realize you can delay going up the hill, but you can't prevent it.
I'm not saying we should even prevent it. I think it's an evaluation.
Right. And so I just think it would be reckless of us to make a decision that major without really knowing the impacts, and we haven't done any study on that. And I would really appreciate a housing analysis, a buildable lands inventory, something, because that's a huge section in the development plan. It isn't one item with this, the development, the downtown development plan is another big section, and we did that properly. You know, did that properly, but now all of a sudden, from the side coming in is this request to take one piece that ripples through this whole comp plan, and I just think it's premature. I just think it's premature. It's good discussion.
It dwarfs the other things that we're debating tonight, an 18-inch stoop or not, or a 60 to 75% transparency or not, or a 5-foot setback on a garage. It dwarfs those in comparison of the possible outcomes of it.
And I just think because you can't unring that bell, I think it'd be irresponsible for us to make a determination like that. With the bit of time that we've spent on this, because it has been mostly emotional and not based on what do we have, where we're going. I just don't see how we can. But then, you know, now we're negotiating. You know, well, give me 6,500, give me 6,400, you know, it's like, what? This is an important thing to do. I don't think it's appropriate as part of this assignment, and I know that it came in from whoever. Still can't really figure that out, but I think that it kind of got added on, tacked on, and I just don't think it's appropriate in this discussion. Action.
It came from the comp line, just to continue to emphasize that, right? It certainly didn't come from external.
No, I understand that, yeah. I just mean, you know, in the grand scheme of things, usually you do it in a different order. This is out of your order in your process. You don't usually do a downtown master plan and then fire in something that's outside that zoning and changes a lot of stuff that's embedded in this comp plan that we haven't even looked at. You know, until maybe whoever read all the text. But
Well, it is in the comp plan to lower minimum lot sizes.
it isn't, it doesn't say that though. It says it's one of the tools that we can use. We can also use, and it says in here, we can also use multifamily. So if there's a big part, we can use multifamily, we can use ADUs. I don't know, ADUs were mentioned, but I'm not even sure they were really, I don't know when they came into being as a legitimate.
12 to 15 years ago, about 12 years ago.
So after
Came into
this, as a strategy, it wasn't listed as a strategy because I don't think it was an allowable strategy. People might have been, you know, throwing a little
I
trailer
think
in
it'd
the
be
back.
kind of in that range, probably caught in a mix of housing types, right?
Yeah, but I just mean that wasn't called out for like the others. So I've heard that a couple of times, that the goal is to reduce lot sizes, and it doesn't say that anywhere in here. It says it is not a strategy. It says, there's a different word for it. It's, you know, I call it a tool in the toolbox, but it's not a goal. It's in
the policy, you're right.
It's a way, it's one of the things that we can do to affect the goal. One of them. And so, right, that's my point.
I'm not comfortable just jumping. Because like you said, we can't undo it. I would rather see us go with this now. I mean, we can come back, right?
I mean, I'm just talking about that one thing.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm
just talking about the.
Yeah.
Lots
Minimum
of.
lot size.
So you say we can't undo it, but we can. You just can't turn the clock back on the ones that occurred during that period of time. Let's be, I mean, that's really what it's at.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. You can't undo it.
No, you can undo it. You can
No,
change it back.
not for the time period between.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you can undo it. You could 10
Not,
years from
not
now.
for the ones that are 7 now, if they go down to
Exactly.
500, you can't bring them back.
Yes, but I think it's not a completely. It's not 100% reality. Reality is it cannot be undone. You could undo it
The policy, not the act,
for a certain period.
not
of
the
time.
implementation.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
I get it.
and we
I
could
would,
regret it,
Sorry.
that's all.
I would just offer up a couple of points. One is the stakes are high for sure. I think that's, I think Mia's comments were we're on target. I mean, the stakes are high, so you're absolutely right, Counselor, Weathers, that you can't undo the 5,500 once those lots are there. You can't undo the 7,000 lots when they're there. I mean, the stakes are high. You're not gonna partition a 7,000 foot lot into something else unless, yeah, unless you go 3,500 foot lot, it's not gonna happen. So whatever you do is what you've done. So I just, yeah, I guess I want to make, and then the idea of the sort of analysis, I mean, we have been contemplating this for a couple of years. EGM, you know, it's very common that we implement something like the downtown master plan, and then we do the housekeeping, which is the thing that the city's request. The city's request for investigating lot size, I think, was looking at that policy. I mean, we've definitely promoted multifamily housing to what we're doing, right? So those
In the downtown zone.
in the downtown zone, outside the downtown zone, I mean, as far as more options around housing more people. The analysis required for a community to, I guess, I think Mia's comments are probably the most effective way to say this isn't, it's not like rocket science. Like the buildable lands inventory will give you a sense for how many of those you could fit in your community. The housing needs analysis would help you kind of evaluate affordability, but it's like this kind of idea of like, well, we're gonna build and it's still not affordable, so let's not do anything about it, feels sort of defeatist, just like you gotta lean in, you know, if you wanna make some kind of difference. And I think there's a lot of things in here that are leaning in. So I think your point is really valid when you say we haven't totally turned our back by not reducing the minimum lot size. You've done a lot of things in there that are addressing.
Yeah, so we're not doing nothing.
You're not doing nothing. Anybody who would suggest that, that's just wrong. You're not doing nothing. You don't need to think that this was a total failure in that regard, but the stakes are high. I think the stakes are high right now. So, but I don't think that a lot of analysis brings back to you anything super rich. They're kind of like, and that's what the 7,000 is indeed what Lowell needs to keep doing. I think it's just a call you make.
I just think housing and growth is a huge component of the comp plan, and we're taking one thing, one data item out of that and putting a number on it without knowing what we have. And I just think it's irresponsible. I can't believe that we can spend, you know, usually 2 years on a downtown master plan, and we're gonna do this lot size change with very little knowledge of what's even in the comp plan. I mean, I don't suppose anybody's read it until recently. You know, and there are lots of things in here, and there's not a lot of shalls. There's you know, you may and stuff. And so, you know, which would probably, that's the other thing, you know, if you, I don't know, I'm not a planner, but if you just take one piece out of the whole section on growth management, which is where most of the housing stuff is, then you'd think there'd be a whole lot more verbiage changes to the other parts. I'm not being clear on that, but there's, you know, reading through the goals, because I was trying to find those, when I heard that on the tape, I heard that the city council voted to reduce lot sizes at one point, a couple meetings ago. And so I tried to find that, and it's not there, because it's a tool that you can use, and you can use it surgically. There's terms in here, I don't know whether they were yours or something else, but these things can be applied surgically, or they can be applied, you know, overall. And we have a small community. We have a very diverse mix of housing, more than other communities our size. We've got some condos, we've got Section 8 apartments, we've got duplexes, we have ADUs,
We have Section 8 housing that's almost 40 years old.
yeah, well,
We haven't had any new Section 8 housing since then.
but we could have. But if we looked at what we had and we decided as a council that we want a better menu, and it's not just about size. That's my point. That's what I
But
think.
there's, and I think there's also something there. Everybody has been talking about quality of life. Is quality of life Section 8 apartments, or is it an affordable single family dwelling?
Each person decides.
And what's affordable, the plan talks to
You
that.
say that, Dawn, but everybody talks about it in this ephemeral sense that the 7,000 square foot lot size is gonna preserve our country feel. And this, I don't feel like I live in the country at all, even with this.
Oh, I do.
You know, I grew up 5 miles out of town with my closest neighbor 1.5 miles away. That's the country. This is the town.
Yeah, it's a town, but Tim, it's a different feel. When you've been raised in suburbia,
I spent my time being here.
you know. Well, I'm just saying, it's a different.
But with regard to affordable housing, the plan also explains, and I think this is true. And we've done it before with St. Vincent and the affordable housing project that was done in the 50s or whenever First Street went in. You know, generally you have to partner with a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And we've done that. And we have the ability to do that again too. You know, so there's incentives cities can make and take to do that when that's important for us as a community to do. We're not having that discussion. We're not having that discussion, and I would like to have that discussion, whether that entails some, I'm saying study because that's the lingo that you guys, that's the world you live in, because that's kind of how things start, but it doesn't have to be a formal study, but I mean, we're just plucking one thing out and we're trying to solve affordability by a number of a lot size, and it's bigger than that, and we can do better than that.
So my only response as somebody on the Wetlow Street that keeps coming up tonight. Would they have been able to put more homes on that street for low-income families if they were able to build on smaller lots? We're not talking about a requirement here. I keep coming back to not understanding the concern when we're giving more options to developers. We're just saying, if you can make your home work on a lot of X size, you're allowed to do that in Lowell. We're just talking about adjusting that number. I'm still not, I keep coming back to not understanding the concern to giving more options. Even without a study, because I agree with what you're saying. I'm not sure what study is going to come forward that's going to make me feel like, okay, 7,000 is the perfect number. Or no, it's actually 6,800 feet is the perfect number. So I'm still not understanding that concern. I guess is what I'm saying.
It's more than lot size is what I'm saying. Just like we had a whole bunch of things here. It could be zoning. There could be zoning issues that we make a change on. Just like we did here in the downtown zone. It's not just one thing, and that's my point. Housing is a huge issue in any city, and to look at just R1 and R3 and say that instead of looking at what we really want our future to be, I think it's irresponsible. And it's not that I'm for 7,000 foot lots, but if we've got one huge tract of land that's potential for development from an out-of-state developer that's gonna come in, bet you $1 million, it ain't gonna be 7,000 foot or anywhere close to it. Bet you it's gonna be 1 foot over the minimum, and that's fine. But I mean, it would be within the rules, but is that gonna lend us the affordability that we really want?
More so.
But that's another thing that the comp plan says. Lowell is so small, we are not gonna put a dent in the whole housing inventory, no matter what.
There's only so many 5,400 square foot lot trees.
Yeah. And generally, you know, for affordability, it also comes to play with people's ability to pay. And that's why I like the mixed use, because if we get jobs here, then that increases people's ability to pay for rent, save up for a house or anything. So that's again why I like that kind of approach, because it's never just one leg on a stool. It's always more than one leg that you have to address. And I just think that we're doing this one decision on a huge issue. And I'm open to changing it down the road when we take a better look at it, but I just don't think we have. I just don't think it's. My opinion.
We're at 5,500 recommended now, right? Are all plans, or that's the,
No, they
I
changed
think
it.
I mean, that's what the basic, all the houses that were built in the last 5 years were under the 5,500 guideline, right? Or were they under? Were they always 7,000?
That's what it is.
But they can ask for a reduction, and that's flexibility. You can ask for that, and it's been granted,
It's
That's-
pretty special circumstances. for
Yeah.
various-
but it can be done.
And then it was one of the origins of this was, if we're seeing variances,
Well, because somebody was saying, well, we get variances all the time. It turned out there was 3 in 1 year, and that didn't seem.
yeah, there
excessive.
was a pattern of variances at the timing, that became part of the sort of coalescing strategy noted in the comprehensive plan, lot size. And lot size, I mean, I feel like I have to sort of defend lot size as not an isolated. It's definitely a tool in a toolbox. But it's a very well documented, very clear instrument, so it's a powerful instrument. When I say the stakes are high, it's like, yeah, really make a difference by doing that.
But way more in a big city than in our constrained boundary, because again, you're trying to prevent sprawl. We don't have to prevent sprawl because we can't sprawl. So primarily that's to prevent sprawl, so that you do the infill, you do the minimum lot sizes before you're able to go into the UGB and urbanize that area. And then that's when it gets expensive, is when you're urbanizing the outside the city limit stuff. We don't have that issue. It's very
Well,
unique.
you're extending infrastructure within the city. I do think council member Stratus, your point is one that we probably didn't emphasize enough. I mean, the idea that you're making one lateral, are you gonna serve 6 homes with that lateral, or are you gonna serve 2 homes with that lateral, right? So now there's 2 people that help contribute paying for that. The rest of the city is paying for those. I mean, there are definitely economics to that, and so we've kind of led with the affordability message, which is really where the comp plan nested that question around lot size. There's a lot of benefit, economically speaking, to both within the UGB and obviously to postpone the need to expand the UGB by being more efficient with your land resources. So everything you're saying, I think you're making a point. I think my thing I want to keep providing a counterpoint to is the reckless part. That feels that
I
feels
still need to be accusing. I don't, if that hit you that way, I don't.
just that idea of like reckless. It's like,
I mean, for me on the council. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Well, and I would say it is extremely common to look at lot sizes and to lower them for the purposes of affordability, not just for housing, but affordability for cities, because low density development is not financially sustainable for city governments. And so lowering lot sizes does not require super in-depth study. Yeah, I would not call that a practice at all. It's very common.
Poor choice of words. Residential never pays for itself. You know, it never does. That's the rule of thumb. It can be lessened, but it never pays for itself. And you do have other costs on the other side. You have increased public safety issues. You have other issues. And again, they're delineated in here. You know, it's not just a one-way thing. It's a trade-off. And that's, again, where you look at things to find a balance. And it's not about negotiating, I don't think, for me personally, just I'll raise you 1,000 feet and you come back with 500, and that's what it feels like right now. That's what it's felt like for the last few meetings is it's moving all the time, and then and it's more of a negotiation thing than it is based on what real impact we're gonna have. And I just worry about the negative impacts. There will be some.
Yeah.
And I think that I'd like to go in eyes wide open rather than just. And because I want to live here for the rest of my life, you know, some developers come in and do as well, and they do a good job, and then others don't, because there's, you know, been good developers and not so good in the long term, and so, you know, we want to make it, that's my desire is for the long term. So,
I think you've expressed yourself very well,
and I'll shut up.
and yeah, I think
Let the other speak.
I wanna preserve there was a 2-year process that went into, and the lot size has been at the center of that process the whole time, so.
I want to make another statement. My grandparents bought my house in 1955 after the Corps of Engineers finished. They bought 4 houses on the street for $5,000 a piece. By the mid 2000s, before the housing market crashed in 2008, my house had gone up in value to approximately $126,000 to $130,000. In the housing crash in 2008, my house was appraised at $86,000. Recently, I get information from some real estate agents and just basic, you know, viewing houses in the same area as mine. They're trying to tell me my house is worth $275,000. My house is a $5,000. Originally it was a 692 square foot house built by the Corps of Engineers with 2-inch thick walls, 2x4 walls, not even 2x4 walls.
I got one just.
And that's affordable in Lowell. That's the cheapest housing we could get in Lowell. And it's a house that was brought in on a railroad car by the Army from an abandoned military base in Southern Oregon after the end of World War II. If we can't figure out something to do here, we are going to continue to drive people out of our community that aren't on the upper end of the economic scale.
Well, yeah.
Whatever that looks like, whatever be, if we use every tool in that book, that's fine with me. But we do need to address this issue because I don't think that's fair. My children can't afford to come back to Lowell here in their 6th generation. My kids' family's been here in this area since 1849 when Elijah Bristow came here, and they can't afford to live in this community.
Well, the scary part right now is too many. I mean, my son can't buy a house right now, it makes $40 an hour, so, you know, we're in a time, and hopefully that'll change. And we certainly need to work toward making it possible, but we're in a time where it's just not, we're not gonna make a lot of, not with interest rates and everything. It's just very difficult, but, and don't misunderstand the statement, because I want us to be looking at what we can do to make things affordable, definitely.
Well, affordable housing is not just single family housing,
Right.
it's you know, R3, it's rentals, because then you have a much better mix, and a person can move here and rent for a while and save up or whatever, you know, the rent's high too, but again, we're at the peak of the market, and you've lived through a couple of recessions like I have here, and there was a whole bunch of people upside down both in 08 and in the 80s. And so, you know, that's like a market correction. It never just goes all even land. People say, oh, you'll never lose money on land. Yeah, you can. Hey, you can in Oregon. That's all it takes is a recession to reset everything. And so if we make these decisions that are lifelong at the peak of a time when, well, say the R word, but you know, it happens. There are sure R words. But I would like to see more rental housing and not a lot of single family houses are being brought up to rent out. And that's not what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah, I mean, options. I know a lot of communities, and it's always a depressing thing to even hear myself say, but it's like they're trying at this point to hang on to this sort of middle class. Right, they're trying to get I have colleagues who are working for a decade, have what I think anyone would argue is a competitive compensation. They're renting because they just can't.
Exactly.
Buy a house. So some of these communities, it's like, we can't hang on to, and that's often has implications for schools, and often has implications for. So just like how we kind of keep the heartbeat of the community, wow. Because I think most communities want that range of life experience represented in their community, right? So that's a general comment, right? Kind of to your point, no matter how you do it, see if you can figure it out, so. We promoted a couple of levers that are pretty battle tested for making a difference. And that's all we can do is. Schools.
I just wished it had a blended in the multifamily in the affordability stuff, because when you're talking about young families coming into school, generally they're in a rental situation. And then they don't live there till they're 80, like Tim and I are gonna do. In our homes.
Downtown. I mean, Jerry's development is a great example of something that brings in that kind of, they call it, just that option.
Yeah, which that's why I support it. I mean, I think that's great. I think that should be more expanded, again, our town is so small, that it's not like, I mean, when you think of downtown, you think it's a place that's miles away from where people live and to the next school and that sort of stuff, but that's what we had remember when we had a big confusion over where the emergency operations center was gonna be, because they said it was downtown, and everybody's going, where's that? 'Cause
What do you mean by that?
was that the fire station? Was it here? Was it, because we're talking about 100 feet in downtown, 200 feet down the road. Most places it's miles,
Mr. Mayor, I have a procedural recommendation for the
Okay.
city council. First, there's the motion to hold the first reading and the first reading, which needs to be done. The second is similar to what we did with the planning commission. Is pulling up these specific items on here and asking city council for a motion for either staff recommendation or planning commission recommendation or something else. And we can go through it one at a time for your direction. We'll take your action and put it in the final text. And if there's anything else that you'd like to change, now is the time to do that.
I think we're all pretty much set on everything except the recommended minimum square footage, and I think that I'd like to hear a motion consistent with someone about where they'd like to go, then we'll work from there.
Do you want to take them one at a time, like Jeremy?
No, I think let's just take them. I think we're ready to go we talked this enough. I hear this.
So, Mr. Mayor, am I clear that the council concurs with?
As amended, except for.
Well, I don't know what the council, we need to go through these.
You want a consensus or what?
I'd like a motion from the council,
Okay.
but first we need to do the first reading.
First reading. Got a motion for a first reading
I'll make a motion for the first reading.
by title only.
Yes, by title.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Okay. By Tim and Jimmy, for all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? Good to hear. Okay. Fine, let me wake up my machine.
No, it's for 309. Yeah, so that's right there. Make a motion. Yeah, they get the motion to hold first reading on ordinance 10 as well. So we just did the 309, right?
So I've got it pulled up here on the screen.
Okay. We're doing each one by itself.
So you're not doing the two first readings first and then going through this? That's
We're
right.
gonna,
You already did the first reading.
no, we,
And here it's two motions.
yes, of the ordinance 209, an ordinance adopting text amendments of Lowell's Development Code and text amendments for Lowell's comprehensive plan, codifying the Lowell Downtown Master Plan. By title only. Now, we go through and, have the, items out of, is this out of 309 or 309 and 310?
This is three.
So this would be 309. There's one recommendation for this 310, and that's the
Okay.
city.
Okay. Let's do the 39 then.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion on each one?
Yes. The first item is garage setbacks. Revising it to remove everything after 10 feet. So the motion would be to accept the planning commission's recommendation on this item.
I'll
Go ahead,
I'll make a motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation on this item.
I'll second.
Jimmy and Gail, and all those in favor of accepting the recommendation to rise to 10 feet, remove all language after 10 feet on R1 and R3. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay, 18-foot elevation. So you have two choices. Either it's a staff recommendation or the planning commission recommendation.
18-inch.
Correct.
I think most of
Russell,
it, we accept the planning commission's recommendation to remove the 18-inch requirement and reword policy 4.2 porches and stoops in the downtown master plan referencing the 18-inch requirement. Have a second?
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. We have discussions about the stoops.
So just to be clear,
Yeah,
That's-
that's where I'm confused.
Yeah.
I thought we were comfortable with the staff recommendation.
I was gonna
because
say, I
it's a
thought
recommendation, not a
Yeah.
requirement.
Where it just changes it to a recommendation.
all you've done is you've added this little recommendation that's part of the.
Well, that's what we want to do. is
Keeps
do away with
everything.
we want to do away with the 18-inch stoops.
No, we want to
No.
recommend it, not require it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So
Okay.
it's the staff recommendation, not the.
So that's the staff recommendation. And I amended to say the staff recommendation.
And also, I mean, my second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Carports, accept the planning commission recommendation on carports.
We don't need to do anything on this because we're not changing the language then.
If we're not changing, we should have that motion.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the planning commission.
They both have the same outcome.
Doesn't hurt.
Second.
By Gail and Maureen sound like,
No.
Jimmy.
and Jimmy. Okay, we accept the recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, minimum lot size.
I'm gonna carry the law.
Well, you can get voted down. I'll make a motion to accept the staff recommendation and keep the minimum lot size for R1 and R3 as 6,000 square feet.
I'll second that.
Taking staff recommendation that R1, R3 to 6,000 feet. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
No,
No,
Roll call please, Mr. Thomas.
Mayor Bennett,
Aye.
Councilor Harris,
no.
Councilor Stratus,
Aye.
Councilor Weathers,
no.
Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Next item.
That's not a bad thing.
I know.
Okay. We'll just, this is under ordinance 310, but we'll go ahead and consider this one. This is accept the PC recommendation to zone the city parcel as downtown residential detached.
Make a motion to approve the planning commission recommendation to zone this downtown residential.
It's detached.
Detached, sorry.
By Maureen, seconded by Gail to accept the recommendation for the downtown as downtown residential detached for the lot we want to sell. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, facade transparency, staff recommendation, or EDC recommendation, staff recommendation is there'll be 60% required, but recommends 75%.
Yeah, that's right. I think the 60% is important to make sure it's reflected in the staff recommendation. The 60% is the minimum, but 75% is recommended, but not required.
So it needs to have the 60% in there.
So, yeah, we just need to make sure that,
The language presented up there isn't
well,
absolutely
it's not,
precise.
it's not as comprehensive as it should be. It should say,
Reserve 75% as a recommendation, but leaves 60% as a requirement.
maybe you could accept the PC recommendation with the addition, the
Yeah.
75% be added as a recommendation.
I'll make a motion to accept the planning commission recommendation of 75%, but setting a minimum of 60%. To drive it back,
Set a minimum
75%
of
is a
60.
recommendation with a minimum of 60%.
Second.
Second. By, Tim and Jimmy, to accept the, recommendation for flex 1, flex 2 facade from, 75 to 60% ground floor. Is that what you said? Okay.
With
Preserving the
75%.
75% as a recommendation.
Yes.
With the 60% minimum.
Not
Required.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Was there anything else?
We gotta do the motion on 310
For your zoning.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, if
Oh, you mean with that.
implicit is the those are the adjustments, then I think we've got it clear.
Okay, what about the school rezoning? Do we want to go ahead and do they need to vote on that to accept that recommendation?
Do it now or, 310?
Yes.
Okay.
absolutely do.
We'll do that on 310 then, Mr. Mayor.
We need further action on 309, or are we there?
Schedule, motion to schedule second reading and final vote.
21st is their next meeting, correctly?
That's correct.
That motion, we have a second reading on the 21st of this month. Somebody second it, please.
Second.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
myself and Jimmy. All those in favor of a second reading on this ordinance with the finalized paperwork on, March 21st, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we're into 310.
You're gonna kill me.
Go
But
ahead,
I'm gonna
please.
go ahead anyway, because I forgot to bring up about the, I had it all queued up and I forgot about the parking. I've heard from a lot of people that parking still seems to be a real issue, and I'm not a parking expert, I don't know what number, but I just don't see how we can put a residential thing anywhere without at least one dedicated off-street parking. And again, I just think that that's just gonna, for our community, I get that some of these things transfer to other places, but I just think the parking is gonna be a real problem. But I don't know what to do about it, because I don't have a suggestion. Except at least one per residential unit.
So I can speak to that. The vision that Lowell has for its downtown cannot be achieved with city mandated off-street parking requirements. And I'd like to emphasize, and I can say it about every 10 seconds, because I let this sink in, that no mandates does not equal no parking. And a lot of people, when they hear, oh, the city is not going to mandate parking, they jump to thinking that means no parking spaces. That does absolutely not mean that. What it does is, it means that people who are building and managing businesses, residences, can make sure that there's the parking that is actually needed. parking, I don't know if people know this, but parking mandates and city codes are junk. They're presented as science. I don't know if you've heard the term junk science, but it is junk science. They're based on nothing. And what it's led to is downtowns and cities that are dominated by parking that goes unused. So when you require each use in a downtown to have its own parking, what you end up with is a downtown parking. People don't go downtown to park. People go downtown to go to stores, to recreate, to shop, to go to jobs. And many of them need to park. And the businesses that rely on customers will determine how many parking spaces they need. There's some businesses that may say, hey, look, most of my clients, I'm a cafe, there's a housing development that's right down the street, most of my clients walk here. I don't need 5 parking spaces. I only need 1, or I only need 2, or people park on the street. And so what a code does is it mandates something that has no alignment with reality whatsoever. And when in a downtown setting, we treat parking as a utility, something that everybody uses and shares, then you end up having a downtown that is actually a place that's worthwhile to visit. And what off-street parking mandates have done, have destroyed our downtowns. And this is not just for big cities. This is also for small towns. Most of the work we do in TGM is with towns not much bigger and often smaller than Lowell. And so this is an issue that is important everywhere. And you simply won't be able to achieve your vision with mandating parking. And again, it doesn't mean that there won't be parking. There will be. But it just won't be an arbitrary number set by people who have no idea how much parking is needed. And I include myself as a land use planner in that. I don't know how much parking a particular business needs. The business owner knows that. So the other thing that this does is a really important element of your plan and of walkable downtowns everywhere is on-street parking. So having on-street parking buffers pedestrians from passing traffic. It creates a visual barrier in the road, and that slows traffic down. And so those are and in fact, it's mentioned specifically in your plan to have on-street parking, and that will fill a lot of your parking need. And then other parking need can be filled by shared parking or parking that businesses and buildings, building owners elect to build. But parking will be built. It will just be built to meet the need.
I hope you're right.
I foresee on that. When we had our big wrestling tournament last year, we had, I don't know, 400 people, cars, whatever it was. You know, I had somebody complaining to me, you know, that we really need more parking. People had to walk 3 blocks to get in there. I mean, I come from big city and I would go to the hockey game. I enjoy hockey. We'd park a mile away and walk in. So, you know, that's like the top of the hill or something like that. So I foresee the first flex use is going to be 4 businesses if all get filled. If parking on the street becomes a problem, they're going to go into City Hall parking lot. I would. I mean, that's 1 block away. That's not bad. You know, if he gets 12 businesses and the street gets busy, I'm going into City Hall and I'm going to park there. I realize it was at 5:30, so you know, I'm not going to. I don't want to get towed or I'll have my car blocked in, but I see the parking going into City Hall parking lot. You know, that's just where it's going. That's where they're going to go. good, bad, or indifferent, that's what's gonna happen. Go ahead.
We opened up a different avenue here, and I'd like to offer, there's some folks in the audience that might like to speak to this. I think that's fair, considering it's a new subject that we broached kind of at the end of this discussion. Is that for what? Are we gonna allow anybody making comments on this besides the council? The audience make comment, or, yeah, specifically.
I think there's no solution to it, really. I don't see we're not gonna have
Yeah, even
to.
reopening if that was an imperative that the council felt was.
I just don't see that we're gonna even get we opened up a bunch of what ifs. And I hope so. And unless somebody got a parking lot that they wanna build, We've got property up there at the corner of off some 205 Main, that little island that would make a great parking lot if somebody wanted to buy it. And charge $1 to park, but they still going to see our parking lot, so. There's no answer to the parking issue, I don't see it right now. Not to a first building.
Yeah, what can I say about it? Can I please?
Go ahead.
You mentioned if there's no parking, they just park at City Hall. Well, the gate closes up when the people go home.
That's what I
They
said.
lock it up.
That's what I said.
So how are they gonna park at City Hall?
Until 5:30, they can park all day long.
Most of the events are in the wrestling, all that stuff is in the evening. It's gonna be locked up. And I am on Third Street, right on the border of so-called downtown. And I don't wanna see Third Street get all boogered up with people who wanna park. So, find a solution.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one to add to it. Or are the handicapped people?
What's that again?
Handicapped? We can throw that in the game because.
We have to have
It's a requirement.
if that will be something that will have to be worked out with the county.
Just haven't heard it.
And hopefully by the businesses that are sensitive to it. Like I say, that we have to get the first building up first. I don't think there is an answer to that. We have a bunch of ideas. And we have a narrow street that whenever we do the Blackberry Jam, I think it's too narrow to be safe. So. And whenever we're gonna have street parking there, the cars are gonna go by going 30, 40 miles an hour, whatever they do, for Blackberry Jam, at least they slow down, so.
He said, when you get that.
Yeah.
The business is there, it'll
Yeah.
probably slow down.
Okay. Any other things on 309 before we step to 310? Okay. Let's move for the first reading, please. All second. Okay. By Gail and Tim. All those in favor of first reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? By title only, the first reading of the 310 as an ordinance approving the rezoning of properties contained within the boundaries of the regulating plan, adopting a new zoning and comprehensive plan map and revised regulating plan map by title only. We need to do, did we approve everything that need to be approved?
One more item, I would recommend the city council approve a motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation to zone the school owned property to public land downtown.
It's not already. It's not already.
It's specific parcel that they obtained then.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Onto the side there. Okay.
So we need a motion to. Change
So moved. The better reset, so moved.
So moved.
Yeah.
The second.
Yeah, we need a second. Okay, we got it by Gail and Tim to rezone the school property from whatever it was to public land.
Public land downtown.
Yeah. There you go. All in discussion? Those in favor? Say aye. Okay, opposed? Good. Okay, I'm not surprised. We need it, what's that, sorry? Oh, yeah, the second reading on the 21st. Somebody want to make a motion on that?
Make a motion to
Okay.
schedule second reading. Vote on approval on the 21st of March.
Good, I had not giving me yes. All those in favor of a second motion on the 21st, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed. Okay, that's when everything's gonna come back to us, all complete, all put together, all the
Yes.
correct words in there, no lines out or anything like that, no. Are you gonna highlight the one where your changes are, is that part of it, or is just black and white, this is the new one?
It'll have we can do both.
Okay,
We can have a legislative and the final.
yeah, okay, yeah, it's just, you can see, you already confused me on all the lines out, lines in, so, it's,
Writing in red.
okay, anything else from, staff here?
Nope, thank you, Jake, thank you, Laura.
We really appreciate it, we beat you up, you know, but,
Thank you.
it's, that way, whenever we get beat up on the street, we can say it's your fault. No. We really appreciate the work you put into it. I know it's hard for a small town, you know, we're seeking direction. And, you know, we haven't been down a path yet, but it's a tough path for us to find our way.
I would just say the decision-making bodies, the code committee, the residents, I mean, we're being compensated for our time.
Okay.
So you're welcome, but the volunteers, the making this, that's impressive.
Thank you. Any leader if you want, you know, we're gonna talk about really important stuff now that you're gone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
It's been big, big work. And thanks for all the, volunteers or the people that was in the committee, commission. I kicked them out, right?
Yeah.
We need to take a break. Okay, thought we recessed for 5 minutes. We're recessed at 9:28.
I'm gonna use that when I train students. I do what you.
We tried to work it out.
Yes. That's like the me. Yes.
But I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean. Sorry, you felt that way.
Yeah, these guys.
I worked with you and I'm talking to board about this. Okay, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Good. So I don't need to do myself.
Oh, that's fine. I'm fine. It's not me. I was just. No big deal. I'm sorry.
Man, sleep last night, so sleep good tonight.
Yeah.
I have to be for no good reason. The only thing I'm gonna do is. Okay, I've been sleeping for.
Oh, that's the problem. I got an elderly one. Oh. Yeah. Well, hopefully. Harvest. Replaced. So sorry.
Yeah, I had that was one of mine. It was almost
13.
Yeah.
Fine. I figured it out, this one, I'm doing better, but yeah.
Oh, good. I haven't heard about that. Where is it?
It's right behind the Y in Springfield where, like, oh, that. Little place, we're like 21st, go down 21st and then go on South A.
Okay.
There's a double kind of
4 or 5 unit industrial, you know, like that roll up doors that
Oh,
go up, it's in one. I don't know, were you in there?
I bet she mentioned that. You what?
That was the fate.
You can always get up and votes.
You never want to be quitted, it's like, hey, everybody, I know you voted for me and support me, but I want to take some time off. Go back and vote them down here. So,
We're in the vein of 9:32.
Don,
And, now we're gonna talk about solid waste and, sanitary.
Get a little punchy here, sorry.
Been a long holiday.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm requesting any final feedback from the city council on the franchise ordinance. This is following up from the February meeting. I have some recommended next steps. That includes a first reading on April 4th, second reading on April 18th. I did look into the subsidy program that the city council suggested. It is possible. Between now and whenever the franchise ordinance will take effect, we can come back to you with a draft of how that would work. I also have representatives from Sanipac on tonight. We have Aaron Donnelly and Chris Kiar. In case there are any final questions. In case there are any final questions that you would like to ask them or some feedback that you would like to give on this process.
Council.
I got some feedback. I would like to, advise, the council and the city administrator that I think that, if there's gonna be any, arrangements made that allow for benefit for the franchise agreement or have the appearance of giving benefit, that those benefits lie solely within the citizens and the community of Lowell. I would rather see us have, I think the agreement, if I remember right, I could be wrong, was 2 30-yard dumpsters placed in the community for a citywide cleanup. The Blackberry Jam recycling and dump stuff, and then the last part was the city hall's garbage for the year. I would prefer to see 4 30-yard dumpsters in 2 different sessions for the community. And the Blackberry Jam and the city paid its own garbage bill. I think that I have a great concern with the exorbitant suggested fee raises that are going along with this outside the bounds of most things that anybody sees outside of Nigeria in terms of inflation rates. That the appearance is going to be that the city has basically, in my opinion, received kickbacks to help that be passed and arranged, and I don't think that's a good look. I think that with the 250% raise that we're seeing or suggested raises, that's not exactly right, but I think it's close. I think it's atrocious that we're gonna pass the 5% franchise fee off to the citizens of Lowell to pay versus Sanipac paying themselves. If Sanipac wanted to accommodate these raises, they should have started to do that 14 or 15 years ago when they took over Sanipac, when they were absorbed into whatever entity they are now. I don't know exactly what their entity is, but they have basically monopolized the community already. And I think that by waiting this long to do this, it's not a good look for them. It's not a good look for us. And looking at you guys, and I think that for them, I think they really need to think about this, whether that amount of increase is going to drive so many people away that it's not a profitable business plan for them either. So those are my thoughts.
So,
Good, go ahead.
Which is why I was asking Jeremy, I wasn't sure, I'm not familiar with franchise agreements, that generally I thought you grant a franchise agreement to someone, you know, when there's multiple players, and then that gives just one person that, you know, you're, for that franchise fee, they get exclusive, you know, business. So I'm worried, yeah, that with the price increases, that if enough people, you know, discontinue their service, aside from dumping it in the woods, control that, but is that gonna make this unprofitable? And then does, you know, I mean, maybe the franchise agreement makes them have to continue service out here, but we want win-wins. We don't want win-losers, you know, so I worry about that as well. The thing that got me, because I didn't realize it until the meeting, was I apply CPI to stuff I do at the school, and I go up and down. You know, if it's a negative CPI, it goes down. You know, there's no, you know, minimum. And so that the 7% inflation rate this year is outrageous. You know, I don't think that's going to be continuing, and it's going to be adjusted someday, again, back to market forces. And I think that's odd that we wouldn't get the benefit of the reduction if we were to, you know, take the good and the bad, you know, and as a business, and that's too, you know, it seems a little one-sided to only realize the upside and not the downside. And then I'm worried about, yeah, that putting our garbage service out of business. And for a lot of people that have a pickup out here and can haul their own, great, but there's folks that can't. And I don't like the way it looks either. It looks funny when the city's gonna get free garbage and the rest of us are gonna have to not only pay, but pay a lot bigger. So. Concerns.
So, Tim, I guess I'm not, what? You're all concerned. Are you suggesting anything in terms of this?
No, I think these were just some thoughts that Jeremy put down. I think we're free as a council to make whatever suggestions we want to.
Yeah.
How this should go. I'm just surprised that Sanipac didn't address this situation in an incremental manner over the last 14 years. And I think we're all in a really stinky place because that didn't happen. I don't understand that. I mean, I think you guys are Consolidated Waste as your parent company, I believe.
Used to be Star.
No, I'm talking way above that. So Sanipac bought all those folks out, and then who was the parent company for Sanipac?
Yeah, it's Waste Connections is our parent company.
Which is a nationwide company, correct?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Well, how did they miss the boat on this to not do this over like 15% over the last 15 years versus this gigantic increase all at once?
Well, we're a largely decentralized company, so we sort of operate locally and manage the business locally. And I think we didn't want to, you know, we bought a lot of, you know, when Star went out of business, you know, actually we bought them and we inherited a lot of accounts from them. I think that we didn't want to jump everybody up all at once, and we've been trying to incrementally bring people up, but there probably is a better, you know, I think that was probably our intent, was that we didn't, you know, and we didn't want to burden people with those large jumps. And now we don't actually, this doesn't necessarily need to happen either. It's just that with a franchise model, you do want to have a regulated rate that's stable and the same for everyone. So I think we were probably given a really good deal to a lot of people for a long time, because we wanted to be, I guess, sensitive to the same issue that we're running into right now, that we're all kind of in. So it's not like there's a corporate hierarchy demanding, you know, we kind of work together with the communities and look at each one and try and work out what we think works best there at a local level.
Well, I'm with Maureen, Aaron. I want this to work for everybody. I want the garbage to be collected on the city of Lowell. I don't want it to be dumped in the woods. Not everybody's going to be cool enough to go to Lane County dump. And I would like those folks that don't have a vehicle, that can't go to the dump or go to the woods and dump it, to have their garbage taken away. People, you know, the elderly who have no way to deal with those kind of situations. I want this to work for Sanipack because I want us to have a garbage service in the city of Lowell. I use your service and I think it's a good service. Unfortunately, because you didn't incrementally raise those rates, which if you're trying to be a nice guy, I found in life sometimes being a nice guy bites you in the butt in the long run, because then when you gotta put the hammer down, it's too much of a hammer. And
You know,
it's
and maybe
for-
that's where, yeah, maybe that's partly my fault. I've been in charge of kind of doing a lot of the price increases, and I probably could have gone higher over the years and haven't. So that's probably why we're there. And that could be on me for that. So
Well, hopefully Chris doesn't feel that way about it.
No, we're in it together. It's been my short time here and learning about the city of Lowell, and there's right comments on both sides that we've heard tonight. And you know, to enter into a franchise agreement, which I believe Jeremy and the city of Lowell reached out to us to do, the rate in the middle, as we showed you last time, is something that needs to be done if we do go into this agreement, because then it's everybody has the same price, and there's different carts, different sizes, different services. Customers, businesses choose what they want to have, and it is a regulated same rate for everybody. Getting there in this it's a big hurdle, and we talked, you know, in previous meetings about, you know, subsidizing the people that, you know, the ones that were at $9 a rate instead of going, you know, double that or a little bit more. You know, Jeremy and we talked offline about, you know, maybe the city doing something with the franchise fee to help them. There's not really an easy way to do this, and we're kind of just here at the table to talk about the easiest way to accomplish the franchise agreement.
Well, so we still have to come up with kind of our, how we're going to do that, right? And how we're going to help people.
Correct.
So the ideas that Tim's coming up with, we just need to sit down and get that figured out so it's actually happening.
Of removing the city garbage service as a benefit of the franchise.
Well, I mean, that and maybe the dumpster, you know, I mean, different ideas that we can put that money into help the citizens. So we still have to figure that out, right? Exactly what that looks like.
Correct.
Well, I'll say right now, I mean, I think I need to address Aaron and Chris. Are you guys willing to work and rearrange that rate schedule so it's not appearing to be a 250% increase in people's garbage rates across for a lot of the folks? Because from my end, we're talking small things. Whether I help people with the 5% fee and help somebody knock down their bill by $4 or $5, or whether the city gets garbage for $1,000. The big parts of this, for me, is the rate increase that Sanipack is proposing for us to enter into this agreement. That's my problem. The other things are just like we were talking in this earlier tonight. Some things are just small pieces and some things are big pieces. And what I saw at the last meeting, the big piece is the rate schedule that you showed me, Aaron.
yeah, and that was based off of, you know, just running numbers on the averages to try and sort of keep the whole, I guess, the system whole as it is now, and just balancing those across the rate system. So if we were to adjust that, it'd probably have to come back to you because it does involve some looking at the numbers and everything a little differently, maybe.
And I don't speak for the whole council, that's for me.
Yeah. And to just, when we looked at the rates last time, and granted, there is a group of people at the bottom that have received a low price for many, many years. Those are the individuals you're talking about that are going to increase. We also do have individuals, residents that are going to come down in this process too. So there's a lot on both sides.
I'm gonna say this, Chris, if those people have been paying those higher rates and their rates are gonna come down, they're people that can afford those higher rates.
Well, mine's gonna double, so is Maureen's.
You see what I'm saying, Chris? Is if somebody's been
If I
willing to
keep
pay you
moving.
guys $120 a month for garbage versus going and dumping their garbage at the Dexter dump for $20, they can afford that. It's that old lady that's been paying the $9 for a quarter that you're gonna go to $90 or $81 in some sense a month that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, well, so I think on that, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was, the lowest was like $9 for a 35 gallon. We were, and we were recommending a $29.40 per month. Which would average it across the base, adding the CPI and the 5% franchise fee. So that's,
And I'm right, $9 is what they were paying, and now it's gonna be like $81.
well,
$90.
yeah, I mean, it'd be like,
For three.
well, quarterly, it'd be, yeah, and they were paying the lowest person, and that was probably an anomaly, that low, but on average, let's say the low person was paying $18 a month. So yeah, times 3 versus 29 times 3. And not that it's not a significant jump, it is, but I think that, you know, you can focus on the very few anomalies, then yes, it looks really bad. And maybe there were things that we can do to assist them. So part of it would be potentially, we talked about, you know, relief for the ones that are seeing a significant jump, to ease them into that system.
I don't know, guys, I feel kind of like this is really being pushy put it a little bit around, because I pay $81 for 3 months right now, and you're proposing raising mine by 300%, I believe. To where it's gonna be $90. I pay $81 a quarter, and you're proposing raising it to $90 a month.
No, not $90 a month.
No, not,
No. If you're paying $81 a quarter, divide that by 3, so that's
Oh, sorry. It's gonna go from, I'm sorry, you're right. It's gonna go from about $27 a month to $90 a month.
no. It
no.
would go, no, the service that we recommended for the 35 gallon, which is the most common, is
So I have the
20
large can. Let's talk the numbers we're talking right now. I have the largest can with 1 recycling can.
Okay.
I'm currently paying
Okay, let me try and find
$81
that.
a quarter.
It's gonna be 100.
Did I lose you?
$200.
And while they're looking this up, Tim, the one thing that I will share is I have heard from multiple people in the community who were shocked to find out in this meeting that different people were paying different rates for the same service.
Yeah.
So I did hear some feedback from people that needs to be addressed and corrected. So I do share your concern in the outliers and how big of a swing this is gonna be. But I just wanna make sure that's on the record, that some people are upset to find out that they're paying very different rates for the exact
I can
same
understand
service.
But I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
Yeah.
until this meeting.
I didn't either.
So like that frustration is out there.
Yeah, because if you've got the big can, yeah, you and I are paying different, I'm
Yeah.
paying more.
So yeah, I don't have your account info in front of me, but the data I had was average. The current Lowell average for the 95 gallon car, which is the biggest weekly, is $70.03 a month. And we would propose that to go to $79.52.
Maybe I read your rates at the meeting last time on the chart you gave me wrong. I feel like there's like I'm missing something here. I thought that the rate for the largest can was gonna go to like 240 or 270 a quarter.
Yes, well, that's per quarter, so I was talking per month. So right now, on average,
So I'm paying $81 a quarter right now.
so then I would say that if that's, and again, I don't have your information in front of me, but if that's true and you have the largest can, the 95 gallon, then that's a significantly under essentially what the rate is average.
What's it going up? What is the 95 going up to?
So there's 35, 90, 65 and 95. And even within those, there's opportunity for every other week, et cetera.
Her direct question is, what is the 95 going up to?
79,
That was a single question.
79.52 a month. So a quarter, that would be,
So my monthly rate or my quarterly rate is now going to be my monthly rate, almost a 300% increase.
Because I'm paying 43 a month right
okay, then you also have a lower than average, significantly lower than average for that larger can. Now, you may not have the larger can. Sometimes people think they have the very largest and it's actually like the middle can.
No, I absolutely have the very largest.
Okay.
I had 14 boys when I got the service. So I'm gonna say this, Aaron, I only started my garbage service with you guys. I've kind of had it on and off the 20-some years I've lived in the house I live in. But I've only had the current one, so I'm not one of those people that like got a rate from Star Garbage years ago and it just got passed off to me, got lucky. I got these rates from you guys, and this is where it kind of is biting you guys in the butt for not making those rate increases over the period of time. Because if I had entered into your service 5 years ago and you'd said, okay, Tim, your quarterly garbage rate is gonna be $160, I wouldn't be sitting here feeling like I'm feeling today. I wouldn't have the sticker shock that I'm seeing. And so, like I said, it's not because I'm some outlier that got the service from Star and I've been there, I've been a great customer for 50 years. I'm a relatively new customer kind of.
Right. Well, I'd be happy to look through your account. I'm curious now that you're bringing it up. If I could, if you want to, I gave you my card. Maybe I could take a look at your address and see, like, I'd have to dig into it to really see probably more closely. But I'd be happy to do that and get back to you.
I don't want to get too distracted on me. I just know my numbers, so they're easier for me to deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
now. So. So the bottom line is that these rates are gonna kick in at what point? In March? And I need to call you guys right now, but
No, so yeah, so right now we haven't done any price increases this year. We've been kind of waiting for this conversation. And then I think we had presented to Jeremy that we could potentially wait until July 1 and to give people notice of the change. And if they would like to change their service, they can do that. If they can decrease or need to decrease or something. And July 1 is when the landfill does its rate increase. And so that's sort of a natural timeline to do an annual rate adjustment. Because
does that mean it's gonna go up again for what you told us?
no, the rates I told you would be effective July 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then our question to ourselves is, are we gonna vote on this tonight and go for it and then?
I need to ask Aaron another question. Aaron, you said change their service. Who did we change it to?
There is another bill company.
Change the service with Santa Pack. You're talking about the right sizing of the garbage.
The right sizing of the garbage cans. Yep.
Yeah. I don't think there is another company.
Anyway. So are we deciding to?
I'm asking for your input so
Fairly
that I can create a final agreement or a franchise agreement to bring to you. And I'm asking for your buy-in on my recommended schedule, which has a first reading on April 4th.
Okay, so we're not signing anything yet.
You'll come back with the plan and what everything for us to be looking at. Or on the 21st, or just on April 4th, the first reading.
Well, I think something else is, I believe I heard Chris and Aaron say that they could go back and look at some numbers and see if they can right size their offer to see if it might be more acceptable to the community and their customer base. And I think, I don't want to push through this just because we want to get a decision made. I heard Chris or Aaron say that, am I correct?
Yeah, I can't remember. Okay, so we were talking about, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now as to that piece of conversation, but I said that it would take some type of review going back because we essentially presented numbers that would keep the system whole as it is now. And I can't remember what it was that was that around that conversation that you were asking about.
So it sounds like we've got a little more discussion to do. You know, you guys are free to do what you would like, but
My concern, if Jeremy leaves tonight without understanding if we're inclined to agree with the franchise or not, if we wait to April to get a final answer, even if it's yes, we're gonna go with a franchise, that's really limited Santa Pac's ability to work with customers to then right size.
Yeah.
But we're not giving them a lot of time to actually then reach out to customers, because now they might reach out and say, maybe your rates are growing up, because maybe there's a franchise, so maybe you need to adjust your product that you're purchasing.
Well, we gotta wait till April period, is what he's saying.
Well, but I think-
regardless whether we
Right, but
change
if we have to adjust levels, but we're inclined to go for a franchise, at least Santa Pac can start reaching out to customers. to say,
I'm inclined to go for, I'm not saying, I'm absolutely in favor of a franchise. Absolutely, 100% in favor of franchise agreement.
Okay,
I want it to work.
well then,
I want it to have a good appearance. I want it to be appealable to the community of Lowell. And I want it to work for the majority of Lowell, so we don't end up with our stuff dumped in the woods. And so that Santa Pac can continue making money as a business that offers a service to Lowell that's beneficial. I want it to work for everybody. I'm just concerned about the rate increases.
well, then can we direct Jeremy to, for the first reading on the 4th of April, because that gives us time to do a little more work on this and come up with, make sure we've got some things in mind. You guys, I think what you had said was you could go back and relook at things and see if there's any way that, it could increment a little bit less. I'm sure you have to do something for your business. We're not expecting you to give it away, but,
We'll come back on the 21st of March.
yeah, I mean, if we could even talk the rates again on the 21st of March, but we could make sure we're ready to go on the 4th of April with the first reading. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we can
So we're definitely
look
moving
at it and see if
forward.
there's anything else creative we can come up with. I think one of the items was potentially utilizing the franchise fee funds to help for people in need that are affected by the increase. You could set aside a certain dollar amount of that for the first year or two and see if it's requested. And if it's not requested, then you could potentially remove that funding for that. That might be one way to say, okay, there is a fund out there for people that are directly impacted by this increase, and there's a process to get that funding. That might be one way to sort of gradually phase it in as well.
Well, I wonder too, I don't know how privacy issues, I don't know how you do this, or if you guys could go to the customers that are gonna have the big major increases and work with them. And I don't know how we can do that, because I don't know if you can. I'm just thinking, we're gonna have certain people that are gonna be impacted. Some of us are gonna be able to manage it one way or the other, but if we were actually working with those people and saying, okay, you can go and get help here, or you can lower your service, or, but really working with those people almost individually. I mean, I would do it if that's something we could do in the city. And help people know how to manage this increase.
Yeah, we discussed putting a letter out to the community from both the city, write it together, the city and Santa Pac, to them in advance to show them what the increases were and what the other services are. And that we have to do it on a broad spectrum. We can't do it individually. It would be that, the customer would get the letter, would be able to call in the Santa Pac. And if they're able to go from a 95 to a smaller can, then we make that change. We swap out the cart, we change their billing, and we move forward.
I guess and my goal would be, however we can do that, is to make sure they have all that information and that we're all trying to work with them to make sure this doesn't take them out.
Yeah, whatever we put out in a letter format would be approved by y'all as well as us. So it would be transparent across the board.
Well, and maybe, that they would have not only to talk to you guys, but even if they had any questions, they can call the city too, so. Okay,
Correct.
anyway, but I think we're settled that we can certainly give Jeremy the direction to bring back
I'd like to go back to my first statements and see what the council feels in support of those about the city going ahead and paying their own garbage bill and trying to make all of the benefits that might come out of this franchise agreement, other than the 5% of the city that we deal with however we want, be the Blackberry Jam recycling and garbage, and 4 30-yard dumpsters 2 at a time, 6 months apart or something during the year, versus the city getting free garbage service. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think we
I
should.
mean, what's our garbage service gonna look like for the city, Jeremy, in terms of a year, $1,000?
I don't know.
No, you've
I
been
could,
like.
I could,
I was gonna say, can you give us an idea what that would look like?
yeah, I'd have
We do-
to, I could quantify it. I'd probably have to email Jeremy with that information though, because I'd need to do some digging on the cleanup boxes and the tons and that kind of thing. But I can definitely quantify that if you'd like.
Well, that would be great. I mean, it's an option of something we could do and if.
Right, because then somebody could go down to a smaller can, but then cleanup time when they've got stuff that's.
Yeah,
Junk and
yeah.
we want to clean up the city, then everybody, Santa gets kudos for providing that.
And we may keep some stuff out of the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'm ethically supportive, I'm gonna channel Maureen here and say I wanna know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
Before we make that decision, but ethically, I agree with where you're going with this.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. We just need to know what the numbers are
Yeah.
because we have to be able to afford it.
Right.
You know,
Well, I don't want it to be a fake thing either. I mean, the city's, I mean, the citizens of Lowell are gonna essentially pay that garbage bill. I mean, it's really, to me, it's just how it's perceived and how this is going down. I want the citizens of Lowell to have the best perception of how this is going down, and I think that's what we do.
We have to pay for our own water. We don't get that free. We pay for our own electricity. We don't get that for free. I'm not sure why the garbage would be.
Well, it's not going down real good. And I'll tell you why. What other garbage service do we have out here, Lowell? I know. That's it. Yeah.
So you people up there are taking advantage of us.
Thank you.
You're taking advantage of us because you can.
Working with them.
yeah, they're working with us.
I don't think so.
Okay, so Jeremy, is that what you need though? You've got the direction. And guys, thank you for waiting so long. We know this has been an incredibly long meeting
And
tonight.
hopefully boring is all.
I know it's been fun.
Proud of you for staying away.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we do appreciate the back and forth on this.
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, likewise, we're here to work with you and we'll get with Jeremy in days to come and we'll continue to work on it.
Okay, thanks, you guys.
Look forward to the 21st.
So Jeremy, do you need a vote?
No, I've got enough. I've got enough to work on.
Okay,
Chris and Aaron, thank you for your
Yeah,
time tonight.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Agenda for us.
I've presented
Thanks
a,
for the softball. So.
yeah.
I've presented a proposed budget meeting schedule, asked for city council buy-in on this.
I'll make a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Second.
Yes.
Come on.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You have enough time to get it done?
Yes.
Good. Good thing.
Good answer.
Tonight after you get home.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
Next up is the resignation letter of Paula Reagan.
Parks Committee member Hall Reagan has submitted a resignation letter with immediate effect. As we typically do with other committee and commission members who resign, this is presented to the city council and we recommend that you pass a motion to accept it so that that's reflected in the official records.
I'd like to make a statement after you do this, but I'll make a motion to accept Paul's letter of resignation.
Second.
By Tim and Jimmy. Go ahead.
You want to vote? And then
Yeah, no, for discussion, go ahead, make a comment.
it's not really a discussion. You know, I've been here a long time. Haven't been engaged with you for a long time, Paul. You know, I always heard about the mean guy that lived across the street from the park. You know, my kids have been going there since they were babies. And never really thought about it too much one way or the other, but I heard the story. After I became engaged with an understanding of your position with the parks, I started to tell people a little different. I started to say, you have no clue why that guy sits across the street and watches the park. And as a community member, he's used that park for my children growing up, and I used it as a child growing up myself. I appreciate the love and the intensity and the care you had for that park and other parks. I mean, I think you had a special look for the one across the street from your house, though. And for a long time, it was the park. I appreciate the intensity, with how you, take on everything. I know that in your letter of resignation, you stated some reasons, and I wish you the best of luck in those. And we, as a city, have benefited from your input into those and any other issues. And I hope that everything goes well for you.
Thank you. We all thank you all for your service.
And he's definitely been one of the longest serving committee members that we've had on any and all of our committees. So he's been around a long time, and he's basically Mr. Paul Fisher.
Yeah.
He looks a little different, Paul.
Younger. All those in favor of accepting Paul Reagan's letter of resignation, think about it saying aye. Aye.
I want to say no, but I'll say aye.
I would regret.
Yeah.
And the letter from Lon Drop. I think everybody saw it, and just the one, I think, Mr. Tyler, why don't you speak?
Duly forwarded for city council's consideration.
He fulfilled the request that he was asked to do, so that was good on him.
And short and sweet, mayor comment. We're going from 7,000 feet to 66,000 feet for an 80-foot wide lot. You lose 12 feet on the backside. You go from 75-foot deep to 87-foot deep. Not that much, really, if you think about it. It should be very accommodating to anybody who wants to build any size house. You know, I just, I think that, I don't think that anybody should be too offended by the size lot or anything like that. If you can't do it on a 85 by 75 or 80 by 75 lot, buy 2 lots. Anything else, by anybody?
It's been interesting watching for me on this.
Okay.
Somewhere in the archives, there must be, there was a available land inventory done. And it might behoove us to kind of look at that and see what it had to say. It's you know, you want to say 10 years, but it's probably longer than 10 years ago, and that, you know, would probably help to start with if you could find it.
Yeah.
I'll have a look to see if I've got it.
Archives
But,
somewhere.
it's kind of interesting because there was some not ethical things that went on to change some of that. And
It is the time I think of.
but there should be one around there that would be helpful. So just a kind of from history there.
Thank you, George.
Real quick statement for me, haven't been on the council as long as some folks here, been on the council for quite a while now. It's always seemed rather odd to me, based on the historical precedent set by previous city councils about how much this council is in agreement on everything. You know, I think we've had a few, 4-to-1 votes, maybe very few over the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I'd like to say, I appreciate the fact that we can have a closer vote and still treat each other with respect and.
What makes you think I'm not gonna? Slightly tired.
Okay, just trying to reach that so it doesn't happen. Don't cut me off here.
That's a kidding, everyone.
In Springfield and Eugene that does garbage. And when we had a run around with these folks before, we called and I spoke to them, but they, in their thinking, there wasn't enough clients out here to pick up. So well, that'd be another avenue just to see that there's competition.
Yeah.
You know.
But I appreciate the fact, whether it's 4-to-1, whether it's 5-0, whether it's 3-2, that we can still sit here and debate stuff in an intelligent, logical manner. And
Respectfully.
try not to let emotions
Exactly.
get too much. We all have emotions and we shouldn't get rid of those.
Well,
But,
and it's not personal.
I appreciate this council.
I do too. I do too, very much.
all valuable. Well, it's super valuable.
I heard
I
somebody.
appreciate it. Anything else? We're adjourned at 10:11.
I need to get out